Chapter 771. A cultivator screamed as he fell from mid-air, and a gap suddenly appeared in the encirclement. Ma Chintzy rushed out of the gap in a rather disheveled manner. He took away the storage artifact of the fallen cultivator, and then he escaped into the depths of the river source without looking back. Damn, this kid got lucky. If it weren't for the fact that we don't know each other and hastily set up this 7-star Dao soldier array, how could this person escape? A cultivator who looked to be in his 30s flicked the long sword hovering in front of him regretfully and said faintly, "This person is a proud son of heaven from the heavenly Pegasus clan. He has many life-saving treasures on him, so it's not surprising that he was able to escape. We only came here with the slightest hope. No matter what, even if we fail, we won't be exposed. How could we not try?" That's right. It's just that the 7-star moon trapping Dao soldier array in fellow Daoist half-stars' hands is really amazing. It is said to be a secret technique of the 7-star sect. Just now, in order to trap this Ma Chintzy, fellow Daoist half-star only taught each of us the operation method of the array. I wonder if fellow Daoist half-star is willing to part with it and teach us the entire set of array. We are also willing to pay a sufficient price. We will definitely not let fellow Daoists suffer a loss. A cultivator said to Daoist Master Half-Star. While the other four were talking, they intentionally or unintentionally wanted to surround him. Unexpectedly, they saw Daoist Master Half-Star stroke a strand of black beard on his chin. His entire body suddenly burst into flames and turned into ashes amidst a chuckle. This person is so cunning. He actually used an escape talisman, one step short. But when did such a person appear in the cultivation world? It seems that this person has most likely inherited the orthodoxy of the 7-star sect back then. A wave suddenly appeared on the surface of a small puddle with a radius of only 30 feet. Li Tong broke out of the water and saw 3 spells falling on his head in succession. Each spell had the power of a great magical power. At the same time, cold wind blew from both sides, and 2 fatal means hidden in the wind stabbed toward Li Tong's waist. 5 people, they really have a good grasp of the position. Li Tong casually flicked his right hand, and a beam of sword light slashed towards the top of his head. After that, his left hand slashed in front of his body, and 2 beams of sword light shot out one after another. The first sword light slashed through the void, and a portal suddenly formed in mid-air. The 3 divine arts that were descending on Li Tong's head were swallowed by the portal. After that, the portal gradually opened up, as if a heavenly gate had opened up in the sky. A wave of sword-light water descended from it, as if it was a heavenly river descending from the 9 heavens. The heavenly river in front of Lu Ping was like a curtain of a waterfall, knocking down the 2 strong gales that came attacking him. The descending heavenly river was about to overflow, sweeping out toward the 5 directions that had attacked him earlier. "We've lost the initiative. Retreat quickly." A deep voice rang out, and a figure flashed in all 5 directions before disappearing again. Li Tong looked in the direction where the voice came from, and the corner of his mouth curled into a smile of praise. "At least you have some foresight. You didn't rely on your numbers to surround and attack." Li Tong flicked his finger again, and a beam of light flickered, jumped, and disappeared from his finger like a swimming fish. What Li Tong used was the famous sword technique of the Koi race in the cultivation world, Heaven Gate Sword Formation. This Heaven Gate Sword Formation wasn't just a set of sword technique inheritance. Instead, it was like the overflowing sky faction's overflowing sky boiling. It was a type of condensation of a massive cultivation system of a faction. The Heaven Gate Sword Formation was actually a supreme sword technique inheritance of the Koi race. This kind of sword technique was made up of the opening Heaven Gate, descending Heaven River, Heaven Gate Suppression, and leaping Heaven Gate. The essential energy sword technique that Lu Ping had received was merely the basic sword technique of the opening Heaven Gate sword technique inheritance. Li Tong had already mastered the 4 major sword techniques of the Heaven Gate Sword Formation at the 9th level of the core forging realm. He could be said to be a rare swordsmanship genius of the Koi race. It was rumored that as long as he could cultivate these 4 major techniques into the seeds of his techniques when he advanced to the Dharma stage, he would have a high chance of mastering the Heaven Gate Sword Formation, the Heaven Gate Sword Formation, and the Heaven Gate Sword Formation the Heaven Gate Sword Formation, the Heaven Gate Sword Formation, and the Heaven Gate Sword Formation. According to the deductions of the old farts in the race, this place shouldn't be far from the Sage Lake. But there are so many lakes and ponds, and I don't know which one is the Sage Lake space. This time, the two races seem to have caused too much trouble. Even the Ziyang Palace has begun to intervene. I don't know if this is considered self-defeating. Li Tong looked at the densely packed ponds not far away and could not help but sigh. Even though he was from the Koi race and was born close to water, it was not an easy task to find the Sage Lake. Xie Tianyang was originally confident that he would be able to successfully refine the heaven-level high-grade True Sunfire in 3 years' time and achieve a 9th-grade golden core. But the sect just had to send him to the river source to investigate the conspiracy of the Pegasus and Koi race. What conspiracy could there be? Was it considered a conspiracy to send people to strengthen the security outside the fog array? Who would not want to fish for more benefits when guarding a treasured land? If this had happened to the Ziyang Palace, they would have taken everything for themselves long ago. How could outsiders have a say in it? With one strike of the sword, a cultivator hidden in the dark was killed. The fallen cultivator did not even leave a corpse behind as he turned into ashes. A cry of alarm sounded. Xie Tianyang. He's Xie Tianyang, run. Several figures fled in panic, for fear that they would be killed by Xie Tianyang's Li-Fire Heavenly Yang sword if they were too slow. Xie Tianyang glanced at the fleeing people with disdain. This time, the reason why he still followed the sect's arrangements to come to the river source, in addition to the sect's orders, was because of Ma Chinsi and Li Tong. If there were any cultivators of the same level in the western part of the Central Plains, including the Western Wilderness, that could arouse Xie Tianyang's interest, then it would be Ma Chinsi and Li Tong. But recently, he heard that a swordsman from the North Sea had escaped unscathed from Ma Chengwang's hands. Now, he was in the river source. North Sea's Lu Xianping. The small sword in Xie Tianyang's hand, which was like a small fish, swam even more happily in his hand. This was an unexpected surprise. Others may not know, but Xie Tianyang knew. In the past, Ma Chengwang had fought with the 5th senior apprentice brother, Xiao Chongjian of the 6 purple yang swords. In the end, the two were evenly matched, but Xie Tianyang knew the strength of the 5th senior apprentice brother, Xiao Chongjian. He understood what it meant for a late-stage core forging cultivator to be able to escape unscathed from such a person. Lu Ping's right hand pointed at his chest. The long stream sword was like a thin stream of water, wrapping around the single horn flying stinger several times. Then, the flying stinger suddenly lost its direction. However, the power of the flying stinger still erupted with a strong sharpness. Then, the whole stream of water exploded into raindrops. The single horn flying stinger was broken, and the long stream sword was also forced back by the power of the explosion. At the same time, Lu Ping's left hand pointed at the blade light and shouted, "Jia!" A fiery red lightning descended. Around the lightning, sparks exploded in the air. In an instant, the pale white blade light's sharpness was reduced by half. Then, a series of third fire in lightning continued to descend until the blade light disappeared. At this moment, it seemed that Lu Ping had used all his means and his strength had reached its limit. The 2 Tenma people hiding behind him suddenly attacked. They attacked from behind Lu Ping, intending to kill Lu Ping in one fell swoop. Seeing that Lu Ping was about to die under their hands, the 2 Tenma people, who were very good at sneak attacks, seemed to have already seen Lu Ping's body being pierced and his golden core being crushed by them. Their faces couldn't help but reveal a trace of a sinister smile. However, the sinister smile on their faces immediately froze. Unknowingly, a huge white jade lotus had appeared beneath Lu Ping's feet. A bright light spread out in all directions. The 2 Tenma people's divine abilities couldn't even break through the light emitted by the lotus. Although the grade 9 white jade lotus had only condensed 6 treasures, it hadn't reached the level of a spirit-nurturing magic treasure. However, the quality of the white jade lotus itself was extremely high. Although it was only a peak spirit-nurturing magic treasure, its true defensive power was even stronger than a spirit-nurturing magic treasure with 7 or 8 treasures condensed. Don't fight, quickly retreat. The 5 Tenma people saw that the situation was not good. The cultivator who had blocked Lu Ping in front of them hurriedly shouted. The 5 people quickly gathered together and retreated toward the depths of the river source. Lu Ping had been sneak attacked for no reason. Moreover, the sneak attacker was so strong that he almost suffered a loss. Naturally, he didn't want to let it go. However, when he saw the 5 people forming a formation and retreating without any panic, Lu Ping punched his own palm and let them leave. If Lu Ping chased after them now, he would naturally be able to defeat the 5 people one by one. However, the problem was that right now, Lu Ping didn't have time to waste. Timma people, very good. I haven't gone to find you yet, but you came to me first. I will remember this for now. When the matter at the river source is over, I will make you pay. Lu Ping turned around and turned into a stream of water that flowed into the big and small ponds of the river source. This time, Lu Ping decided to escape directly through the water and find the real location of Sage Fallen Lake. This place was called the river source. It was the source of the second largest river in the Central Plains, the Yulon River. Although it was difficult to distinguish the real from the fake, there was one thing that didn't change, and that was that Sage Fallen Lake was the real source of everything. However, it was extremely difficult to find the source of the water in the entire river source. The mysteries of the river source concealed everything. Even the cultivators of the koi family couldn't do it in the water, but now Lu Ping had a way. The jade water moon pearl was a rare treasure born from the essence of the water of the world. Even in a magical place like the river source left behind by Zhao Daoren, it could rely on its talent to find the real source of the river source. Chapter 772. With the water-repellent pearl suspended above his head, Lu Ping could clearly sense all the minute fluctuations in the surrounding water flow. Then, Lu Ping followed the water-repellent pearl and sensed traces of abnormalities in the water flow, all the way to the depths of the river source. At the same time, Ma Chinsi was holding a map in her hand, seemingly proofreading the changed topography of the river source one by one. Lao Zhu was cursing the clan elders in a low voice, but he had no choice but to search one by one according to the few places that the Lao Zhu had deduced that Lake Sage might appear. As for Xie Tianyang, he was like a sun at this moment, emitting waves of heat from all over his body, as if he wanted to roast the river source dry. White mist rose into the sky, and Xie Tianyang's body emitted waves of white light at this moment, as if he was performing some kind of secret magic. Lu Ping's body turned into flowing water, wrapping the water-repellent pearl and moving about in various pools of water. At the same time, he was trying to find the true source of the river source from the minute differences in the water flow. A giant hand suddenly reached out from above the water flow, grabbing towards the water-repellent pearl in the water flow. Unexpectedly, the water flow around the pearl suddenly turned into a wave of swords. Countless sword lights flashed with a sharp radiance, and before the owner of the giant hand could react, it was torn into pieces. There was a cry of surprise, and a giant fin slapped towards the water flow around the water-repellent pearl, but the surrounding water flow suddenly formed a hollow water ball. Although the fin had smashed the water ball, the water-repellent pearl in the center of the water ball was still unharmed. However, the scales on the fin, which was being retracted, were torn to pieces by the sword chi in the water ball, and were dripping with blood. A giant koi carp stirred up a huge splash in the pool of water, and streaks of blood stained the splash. The koi carp appeared to be in a panic and quickly swam in the water, as if it was avoiding something. Waves rose on the surface of the water, as if weaving a huge water net on the surface of the water, sealing off the koi carp's escape route. Then, 3 water snake-like shadows could be seen at the bottom of the water, pressing towards the koi carp. Lu Ping calmly watched the battle in the water. A 7th-level core forging realm koi carp clearly didn't discover that the pearl contained such danger, or perhaps because it discovered the extraordinariness of the pearl, it was greedy and forgot the existence of danger. This koi carp's magical power was directly broken by Lu Ping from the start, and it was injured. As for the rest of the matter, Lu Ping summoned Samling, and asked the 3 of them to meet a top-level demon clan direct descendant of Zhao Daoren. Green Sea Snake, you are the Green Sea Snake. Why are you here? Sure enough, they were the same race as Zhao Daoren. When Samling first appeared, the koi carp discovered the identity of Samling. Samling simply transformed into his original form and prepared to fight with the koi carp. The cultivation of the koi carp was higher than Samling, and it had crossed the threshold of the middle stage of core forging realm, while Samling was only at the 6th level of core forging realm. However, Samling did not show any weakness. The tacit cooperation honed through dozens of fights allowed Samling to chase after the koi carp, even though its strength had been damaged by Lu Ping. Lu Hai took the lead. After his cultivation advanced to the 6th level of core forging realm, the profound halberd in his hand could finally exert its power in his hands, and he used it to block the attack of the koi carp. Although the koi carp only had a cultivation of the 7th level of core forging realm, it also had a spirit-nurturing magic treasure in its hand. It could be seen that the status of the koi carp clan was not too low. However, the koi carp was not holding a water attribute spirit-nurturing magic treasure in its hand, but a wind attribute wind-facing whip. This made the eyes of Lu Bai, who had always been calm and had the demeanor of a big sister, light up, and a trace of expectation appeared on her face. Lu Hai had the profound halberd in his hand, and Lu Ling had the ice ring from Qin Shui Laozu. Only Lu Bai did not have a suitable spirit-nurturing magic treasure. Although the cultivators that Lu Ping occupied the mountain also obtained 2 or 3, they were either seriously damaged in the battle, or not suitable for Lu Bai to use, so they could only give up. When Lu Hai and Lu Ling saw the koi carp take out the wind-facing whip, they immediately planned to snatch the magic treasure and give it to their sister. "All right, the 3 of you. Finish this quickly. We still have important matters to attend to." Lu Ping saw that in order to prevent the magic treasure from being damaged, Samling had reduced the strength of his attacks. Although he was still suppressing the koi carp, he was still unable to cause any harm to it, so he said impatiently. Lu Ling complained a little. Lu Hai was a little hesitant, but Lu Bai had already used the magic treasure in her hand to attack the koi carp with all her might. Lu Hai and Lu Ling hurriedly followed, only to see a white light shoot out from behind Samling. But there was an attack that landed on the koi carp before Samling did. The koi carp was immediately fixed in the water and was instantly killed by Samling's subsequent attacks. The wind-facing whip, on the other hand, was unharmed and was happily put away by Lu Bai. Lu Ling stepped forward and rummaged through the storage magic treasure of the koi carp. She said somewhat dejectedly, "Father, there are no records of the Heavenly Gate sword formation." Lu Ping nodded, as if he had already expected this. The Heavenly Gate sword formation was the famous sword technique of the koi carp clan in the cultivation world. Such an inheritance must have been recorded in the inherited memory of the koi carp clan. And the reason why Taoist Master Jinli recorded the sword technique in the Jade Slip and was obtained by Lu Ping, was it because there was a problem with the inherited memory of Taoist Master Jinli? With a trace of doubt, Lu Ping was about to continue searching along the mysterious power he felt in his bloodline, but this feeling became intermittent after Lu Ping entered the source of the river. With no other choice, Lu Ping entered the water and relied on the Jade Water Moon Pearl to search for the real source of the river through the subtle changes in the water flow. "Hey, what is this?" Lu Ping was about to continue sensing the source of the water flow when he saw Lu Ling rummaging through it and finding something that looked like a tattered map. Lu Ping was startled. This tattered map looked very familiar, as if he had seen it somewhere before. It was just that after such a long time, it was difficult for him to recall it. "Ling let me have a look at this map fragment." Lu Ping held the map fragment in his hand and scrutinized it for a moment. Then, he rummaged through his interspatial ring and took out another map fragment made of the same material. However, the map fragment in Lu Ping's hand was much more intact than the one in his interspatial ring. Obviously, it hadn't been passed through many hands. On the other hand, the map fragment from the koi carp's body had obviously been passed through many hands. That was why it looked so tattered. Lu Ping put the 2 map fragments together, and a seamless map appeared in front of Lu Ping. The map fragment in Lu Ping's hand occupied 3/4 of the entire map. The map fragment in Lu Ping's hand was obtained from the koi carp Shunren, who died in his hands. Although Lu Ping had suspected that this map fragment contained some secrets, because 1/4 of the map was missing, he did not know what the map was used for. Now that he saw the complete map, Lu Ping finally understood. It turned out to be a map of the river source. To be more precise, this map described the situation in Lake Sage. As for how to find Lake Sage, although the map also mentioned it, because of the repeated changes in the terrain of the river source, it was a bit difficult to find the location of Lake Sage through the clues marked on the map. But when Lu Ping combined the water avoidance moon pearl with the map and combined it with the faint bloodline connection, he immediately confirmed the direction he was heading in. Then, he headed straight for the lake in the northeast direction. Most of the river source was connected by water and grass, and there was a meadow in the northeast that was over 100 feet in radius, which was extremely rare in the river source. At that moment, Ma Chenxi stood above the meadow, holding a map similar to the one in Lu Ping's hand. He was thinking about something carefully. A moment later, Ma Chenxi put away the map in her hand and laughed silently. Who would have thought that the Great Lake Sage would only appear as a palm-sized puddle this time? Furthermore, it's hidden in such a large patch of meadow. Ma Chenxi descended. At his feet, there was a small puddle the size of a palm hidden in the meadow. If one did not look carefully, no one would believe that the Lake of Fallen Sage was hidden in this small bay. Indeed, no one would think of it, but someone would find it. Haven't you and I found it now? Ma Chenxi was about to cast her magic to enter the sacred lake, but she slowly turned around when she heard that. She looked into the distance and said, "Brother Li, you came much later than I expected." Li Tong's figure appeared in the distance, and he said loudly, "It doesn't matter if I'm late, as long as I don't go in late." Ma Chenxi laughed involuntarily and said, "Brother Li must be joking." Putting aside the fact that it's first come, first served, even if Brother Li wants to fight for the chance to enter first, can you really get what you want? Don't forget, the entrance to Lake Sage is right under my feet. What answered Ma Chenxi was an earth-shaking sword whistle. The flying sword in Li Tong's hand was like a swimming fish, drawing a sky-piercing sword light in the sky, as if it was going to split open a door in this world. One of the four great magic powers of the Heavenly Gate sword formation, the great magic sword technique opening the Heavenly Gate. The true Qi sword technique that Lu Ping mastered was one of the basic sword techniques of this great magic sword technique. When you and I had just advanced to the late stage of the core forging realm 40 years ago, we fought to a draw. Today, let's have a good fight and see who can go further in these 40 years. Haha, that's great. Hundreds of years ago, when the land of the river source opened, Jin Wuyo of your Koi clan was defeated by my father. The Flood Dragon Bloodstone was obtained by my father, and Jin Wuyo was never able to recover from that setback. My father is now the patriarch of the Pegasus clan, and the Tenma people are becoming more and more prosperous with each passing day. Today, you, Li Tong, will definitely be defeated by me and repeat the mistakes of Jin Wuyo. I only hope that you won't be abandoned by the Koi clan like Jin Wuyo. Otherwise, the cultivation world will have one less opponent, and won't it be lonely? Chapter 773. The wonders of the sacred Fall Lake had been known by cultivators since 10,000 years ago. For more than 10,000 years, the Heavenly Horse clan and the Koi clan had jointly occupied the majority of the spots in the sacred Fall Lake. Although the two clans had fought a lot, most of them had happened before the sacred Fall Lake was discovered. The situation had changed the last time the river source had been opened. Hundreds of years ago, the Tenma people and the Koi clan produced two genius cultivators. These two genius cultivators were Ma Zhan of the Tenma people and Jin Wuyo of the Koi clan. At that time, Lake Fallen Sage was still opening. The two of them led the cultivators of their respective clans into the source of the river. After finding Lake Fallen Sage, it was unknown whether the two of them were luckier than the senior cultivators or whether something strange had happened in Lake Fallen Sage. In short, when the two of them went into seclusion in the deepest part of Lake Fallen Sage, they found a strange bloodstone that could cause their bloodlines to mutate. Both of them realized that this was a treasure and fought over it. However, in the end, Jin Wuyo came out on top and managed to snatch the bloodstone. Although Ma Zhan was slightly weaker than Jin Wuyo in terms of strength, he was much more scheming than Jin Wuyo. While the two of them were exploring the sacred lake, Ma Zhan had already secretly informed the other cultivators of the Pegasus clan. Jin Wuyo was concealing his strength, but Ma Zhan had already secretly informed the other cultivators of the Pegasus clan. Even though Jin Wuyo managed to repel Ma Zhan, he was soon surrounded by the Pegasus clan. However, Jin Wuyo was indeed worthy of being the #1 genius cultivator of the Koi clan. With his cultivation base, he was able to contend against more than 10 Pegasus clan cultivators of the same level. However, even though Jin Wuyo was strong, the cultivators of the Pegasus clan were not weak either. Due to the abnormality of time, Jin Wuyo would not be spared. At this time, Ma Zhan had already snatched back the Bloodstone and was preparing to completely obliterate his biggest competitor in the Koi clan. However, he did not expect a primordial giant crocodile to appear out of nowhere. Although it was only one person, it caught the Pegasus clan off guard. Jin Wuyo took the opportunity to escape. However, Ma Zhan did not let Jin Wuyo take advantage of the situation. He used a divine art that he was proud of and struck it on Jin Wuyo's back, severely injuring him. After this battle, the Bloodstone in Jin Wuyo's hands was lost and fell into Ma Zhan's hands. Jin Wuyo's heart core space was also damaged by Ma Zhan's strange supernatural powers, so it was impossible for him to advance to the Dharma stage in the future. Jin Wuyo, whose foundation had been damaged, was naturally no longer a target to be groomed by the upper echelons of the Koi clan, Lao Zu. The #1 prodigy of the past had been completely abandoned. This huge disparity, coupled with the fact that he had offended quite a few people as the #1 prodigy, caused Jin Wuyo to have no choice but to distance himself from the Koi clan and fade out of their sights. After that, some people said that he went overseas, some said that he went missing in the lush jade swamp, some said that he was killed by his enemies, and so on. And after Ma Zhan obtained this bloodstone, due to the temptation of his bloodline, he instinctively refined it into his own bloodline, causing the quality of Ma Zhan's bloodline to improve greatly. However, these were not the only benefits. In the short span of a few hundred years, Ma Zhan's level of cultivation and strength had been soaring. Now, he was already at the mid-Dharma stage. Among the cultivators of the same level, he was even better than the cultivators from the Holy Lands. Nearly 200 years ago, Ma Zhan, who had just passed his first lightning tribulation and reached the mid-Dharma stage, inherited the position of the leader of the Tenma people. In the next 200 years, Ma Zhan worked hard to make the Pegasus clan a force that played a decisive role in the Demon clan and even in the entire world of practice. The Pegasus clan prospered, and the leader of the Tenma people, Ma Zhan, was equally famous. It should be known that the practitioners of the Tenma people who were able to make Lao Zu had to at least have the ability of a late Dharma adept. However, Ma Zhan was able to use the ability of a mid-Dharma adept to overpower a great adept elder of the Tenma people and secure the position of leader. This in itself was inconceivable. Although Ma Zhan was talented, no one believed that he had such potential in the past. In the end, both the Tenma people and the Koi clan focused their suspicions on the mysterious bloodstone that Ma Zhan had snatched from Jin Wuyo after they had discovered it at the sacred lake. An item that had almost been buried in a pile of old papers and had almost become a legend was unearthed by the old antiques of the two clans. The Dragon Blood Stone. Only this kind of thing could fundamentally change a cultivator's aptitude, especially if the cultivator was already at the core forging stage and had cultivated for hundreds of years. As for the Dragon Blood Stone, legend had it that in ancient times, it was made from a drop of blood from Jiao Doran's body. In the past, Jiao Doran had a servant who was a practitioner of the Ice Dragon clan. It was because he had received a drop of blood from Jiao Doran himself. Later, with the help of Jiao Doran, this Lao Zu of the Ice Dragon clan had successfully become a celestial being. He had relied on the Ice Dragon Pearl, a special treasure, to pass on the bloodline of the Ice Dragon clan. Although he was not a direct descendant of Jiao Doran, he was still a special existence among the top demons. After tens of thousands of years, the quality of the Dragon Bloodstone might not be as good as the drop of blood that Lao Zu of the Ice Dragon clan had obtained in the past. Moreover, it did not have the remarkable secret technique that Jiao Doran had used to pass on the bloodline of the Ice Dragon clan. However, it still had the effect of cleansing the practitioner's body. Treading the western wasteland, Ma Chenxi's feet stepped on the ground. A rumbling sound came from the ground. Li Tong's sword had not even opened the gate of heaven when it was transformed into nothingness by the energy bursting out from the ground. The two of them clearly already knew each other's methods. The previous continuous probing was just to see if the other had learnt some new remarkable secret technique after not seeing each other for dozens of years. After Ma Chinsi had resolved Li Tong's remarkable sword technique, he attacked first. This time, he also used a short dagger forged from the horn on his body. Breaking wind stab. However, this dagger forged from the horn of the Pegasus was clearly not Ma Chinsi's personal magic weapon. Seeing Ma Chinsi's first attack was so sharp, the swimming fish sword in Li Tong's hand also seemed to be in the middle of the Yulon River. It created huge waves as it pounced towards the breaking wind stab. Just as the two's attacks collided and were about to cause a huge commotion, Ma Chinsi suddenly drew the breaking wind stab to the side. Li Tong did the same as well. The two of them seemed to have a telepathic connection. They suddenly changed the direction of their respective divine abilities, striking towards the empty space next to the two of them. Just as their attacks were about to land on the empty ground, the originally empty meadow suddenly began to emit waves of scorching hot ripples. Good move. The scorching hot ripples vibrated even more intensely. One after another, scorching white sparks appeared out of nowhere, gathering together to form a majestic and explosive flying sword. It was as though it had come from the ancient past, traversing through space and time. Ma Chinsi's breaking wind stab and Li Tong's sword wave had yet to collide with this flying sword, but the divine abilities they contained seemed to be about to be melted by this scorching hot light. The breaking wind stab spun back, and the sword wave lost its sharpness as well, transforming into white mist that filled the sky. The flying sword seemed to have come to a stop as well, as it was tightly grasped by a slender, white hand. Xie Tianyang. When did one of the 6 great divine swords of Ziyang Palace also learn to be sneaky? Ma Chinsi snorted coldly, looking at Xie Tianyang, who had revealed himself and was slowly walking towards the two of them. Sneaky? When did you, Ma Chinsi, learn to speak so eloquently? What a joke. It's your abilities that aren't good enough, only discovering my arrival at such a close distance. We haven't seen each other for nearly 100 years, and your skin has become much thicker. I just don't know if your ability to take a beating has also become thicker. Xie Tianyang spoke with fervor and assurance. From the beginning to the end, he did not even look at Ma Chinsi, but instead gave a slight signal to Li Tong. Courting death. Ma Chinsi attacked in rage, but after attacking, she immediately became more cautious. She did not let the anger in her heart affect the display of her strength. The breaking wind stab disappeared from Ma Chinsi's hand, and when it appeared again, it was already in front of Xie Tianyang. Xie Tianyang's expression was solemn, but his mouth did not stop. We haven't seen each other for nearly 100 years. Who would have thought that you, Ma Chinsi, have learned to take the initiative to attack first? I wonder if your kicking back kick ability has improved? The Li Fire Heaven Sun sword in his hand, which was condensed with 9 treasured seals, slashed across the sky. Xie Tianyang could even cut the wind into pieces. Ma Chinsi's attack did not hit its target, and he became even more furious. The greatest shame in his life was when he was in the blood condensation realm and had yet to transform. He was once defeated by Xie Tianyang's sneak attack. He rode on Xie Tianyang's back and madly ran for a day and a night, covering a distance of 30,000 miles, almost crossing the western desolate prairie. At that time, whether it was Ma Chinsi or Xie Tianyang, who was on Ma Chinsi's back, they had already reached their limits. However, Xie Tianyang did not come down from Ma Chinsi's back from start to finish. In the end, Ma Chinsi, who had exhausted all his tricks, could not help but instinctively kick back, trying to flip Xie Tianyang to the ground. However, he did not succeed in the end. Li Tong had also heard of this matter. When he heard Xie Tianyang say kick back, he could not help but laugh out loud. Ma Chinsi was furious. The wind-breaking stab was still entangled with the Li Fire Heaven Sun sword. His right hand swung, and a horse rope was already falling towards Li Tong's head. Li Tong was furious. I'm not a horse. Go home and put this rope around your neck to hang yourself. He twisted the Heaven Gate sword in his hand into a ball, wanting to break this horse rope. Although it was not easy to break Ma Chinsi's rope, Ma Chenxi was obviously not willing to suffer such a loss. Moreover, Ma Chenxi seemed to have become one against two. The difference in strength between the three of them was not big, but Ma Chenxi was not arrogant to this extent. Xie Tianyang used his finger as a sword, and a sword chi accurately struck the spine of Li Tong's Heaven Gate sword, which was flying at high speed. He laughed loudly and said, "It is not easy for us to have an evenly matched battle among cultivators of the same level. Brotherly, please do not let it dampen your spirits." Li Tong understood, and his spirit was shaken. He said, "Yes, yes, just as Brother Xie said." After he finished speaking, the Heaven Gate sword in his hand suddenly slashed open a door. The Milky Way descending from the sky and the door was split into two, falling towards Xie Tianyang and Ma Chenxi respectively. Ma Chenxi cursed in her heart. A whirlwind formed above her head, blowing the Milky Way into a sky full of raindrops. At the same time, the wind-breaking stab in her hand was still entangled with the Li Fire Heaven Sun sword. "That's how it should be," Xie Tianyang shouted. "Awesome, awesome." The three of them instantly became entangled, not knowing who was the real opponent. Chapter 774. Lu Ping followed a thin stream of water. If it weren't for the fact that the stream didn't show any signs of weakening after passing through so many regions, Lu Ping would have lost his patience a long time ago. Who would have thought that the source of the second largest river in the Middle Earth was this hair-thin stream? However, just as Lu Ping followed the stream of water, both his gold core and his bloodline in the core space regained their previous throbbing towards the mysterious power. Lu Ping knew that he was getting closer and closer to his destination. However, at that moment, a loud roar could be heard from upstream of the stream of water. Lu Ping frowned. The small pool of water in the meadow in this direction was getting thinner and thinner, so it should not attract too many cultivators. Why did it sound like there was a chaotic battle ahead? Lu Ping did not want to get involved in this mess, but the perception of the mysterious power in his bloodline clearly told Lu Ping that his destination was right ahead, where the chaotic battle was taking place. Could it be that there was someone like him who could sense the abnormality in the source of the river? Or could it be that the sacred lake was there, and the people fighting had already entered the sacred lake before him? Although there were many wonders in the sacred lake, it was undeniable that the cultivators who entered the sacred lake first would undoubtedly obtain the greatest benefits. There were a total of 100 places where spiritual energy gathered in the sacred lake. Not only did the 100 places have extremely thick spiritual energy to ensure that cultivators could enter reclusive cultivation, each place was also protected by a small-scale, natural-looking magic array. Once a cultivator entered the place, the magic array would automatically activate and other cultivators would no longer be able to enter. The 100 places where spiritual energy gathered gradually increased in intensity, and the outermost place could guarantee that a cultivator's cultivation base would increase by one level in 4 to 5 years of seclusion. In fact, ever since the opening of the sacred Fall Lake, the cultivators who occupied the deepest part of the lake where the spiritual energy gathered would have a greater harvest. If the area in front of them was really where the sacred settling lake was, then this chaotic battle would definitely attract the attention of other cultivators. Once there were more people, there would undoubtedly be more variables if they wanted to seize the initiative in the sacred settling lake with their individual strength. Lu Ping grabbed the Cloudy Light 5 elemental cloak with his right hand and tugged on it. The cloak instantly transformed from its previous tight-fitting appearance into a cloak that supported Lu Ping's deceiving art. The cloak turned into a thin stream of water that flowed along the current and headed toward the battlefield. Although the Li Fire Heavenly Yang sword in Xie Tianyang's hand was somewhat restricted in the river source, it still made him extremely sensitive to the flow of water vapor nearby. With a single sword, Xie Tianyang forced Li Tong, who had transformed into the Heavenly Gate and summoned the torrential sword river, to retreat. The overwhelming true fire even showed signs of drying up the heavenly river, forcing Li Tong to change the path of the sword river. "Something's wrong," Xie Tianyang shouted, causing Ma Chenxi and Li Tong to be stunned. Xie Tianyang then said, "Someone has snuck in. What a brilliant water escape technique. Quick, cut off the water vein of the sacred lake." In a place filled with water vapor, Xie Tianyang, a cultivator who cultivated pure yang fire, was even more sensitive to water vapor than Li Tong, who cultivated water attribute techniques. Ma Qinxi and Li Tong did not doubt him. They had already confirmed the location of the sacred lake and naturally discovered the water vein of the sacred lake that led to the river source. Hence, they joined forces with Xie Tianyang to attack the palm-sized water vein around the sacred lake. Lu Ping had already seen the palm-sized pool of water. At this moment, Lu Ping could already confirm that there was a huge lake space hidden in this small pool of water. The strong feeling in his bloodline also told Lu Ping that the thing he wanted was in the pool of water. This small pool of water was most likely the sacred lake. Otherwise, the three people in front of him would not be fighting here. The three of them were very powerful. Lu Ping could tell that one of them was from the Tinma people, one was from the Koi race, and the last was a human cultivator. What shocked Lu Ping was the strength these three people displayed in the battle. Lu Ping was sure that among the cultivators of the same level, these three people should be the most powerful cultivators Lu Ping had ever seen. Lu Ping originally wanted to take advantage of the battle between the three people to enter the sacred lake and reap the benefits. Unexpectedly, the cultivator with the fire attribute sword technique that Lu Ping greatly admired discovered Lu Ping's traces when he was only 300 feet away from the sacred lake. Unfortunately, if Lu Ping could get within 200 feet, even if he was discovered by the other three and besieged by them, Lu Ping was confident that he would be the first to enter the sacred lake before the three of them. Now that things had come to this, Lu Ping could not avoid it. Although the fated Autumn Water sword combination was still not comparable to the Leaf Fire Celestial Yang sword that had condensed 9 treasured restrictions, Lu Ping's water attribute Qi was vast. Borrowing the majestic water vapor of the river source, he could restrain Xie Tianyang's fire attribute Qi. Lu Ping coveted Li Tong's Heavenly Gate sword formation. Although he knew that the true essence unity sword technique that he had learned was only a small branch of the Heavenly Gate sword formation, this did not hinder Lu Ping from coveting the Koi race's supreme divine ability. The flowing sword soared into the sky, and similarly, a Milky Way descended, but with an unstoppable momentum, it collided with Li Tong's Milky Way descends great divine ability. However, the result caused Li Tong to turn pale with fright. The sword waves set off by Lu Ping's great river flows east had suppressed the sword river summoned from the Heavenly Gate in one fell swoop. This time, Ma Qinxi did not use the breaking wind thorn, but rather puppets. 3 puppets with the strength of core forging charged towards Lu Ping. These 3 puppets, 1 in front and 2 behind, unexpectedly brought about the imposing manner of 10,000 horses galloping. Lu Ping stamped his foot. The river source was full of water, and there was underground water flowing not too deep underground. A stream of water burst out from the ground under Lu Ping's stamp. Then, under the control of the water manipulation art, it successively condensed into 3 tripping ropes on the ground. Ma Qinxi's expression changed, and the seals in her hands continuously changed. The 3 puppets were about to leap over the first tripping rope, but unexpectedly, Lu Ping's control of the water manipulation art had already reached the point of perfection. The 3 tripping ropes sprang up at the same time, and one of the puppet's front legs was tangled by 1 rope. The remaining 2 tripping ropes ruthlessly whipped the puppet horse's body, and the puppet horse fell head first to the ground. A small part of its head was smashed open, and various parts made of spiritual materials were scattered all over the ground. Ma Qinxi looked at his beloved puppet horse and couldn't help but feel distressed. He hurriedly retrieved the remaining 2 puppets, and only then did he raise his head to look at Lu Ping. "It's you, North Sea cultivator Lu Xianping." At this time, Ma Qinxi had obviously already received the news from his third brother, Ma Chengwang. A core forging stage cultivator who could escape from his third brother's hands was enough to arouse Ma Qinxi's interest. Although Ma Chengwang brought the news to him to tell him to treat it cautiously and not lose the bigger picture because of a small gain, Ma Chengwang clearly didn't know his brother well enough. Lu Ping made 3 moves in a row and blocked the attacks of the 3 people. Originally, Lu Ping was considering whether to retreat first. After all, if he were to become enemies with these 3 people, Lu Ping really didn't have the confidence to win. Moreover, Ma Qinxi and Li Tong were local tyrants, and they had a group of clansmen waiting for their summons at any time. Unexpectedly, after Lu Ping blocked the attacks of the three people unexpectedly didn't attack Lu Ping again. Instead, they retreated together, including Lu Ping, forming a confrontation with each other in a quadrilateral. Today can be regarded as a meeting of the wind and clouds. Xie Tianyang clapped his hands at Lu Ping and said with a smile, "I didn't expect there to be a person like you in North Sea, which has greatly changed our view of the North Sea cultivation world. I heard that North Sea is now dominated by Jinling, Xianling, and Songhai sects. May I know which sect you are from?" Lu Ping's heart skipped a beat. In his opinion, most cultivators in the Central Plains were prejudiced against the North Sea cultivation world. They believed that the North Sea cultivation world was a remote and desolate place that couldn't produce any decent cultivators. Therefore, apart from geographical factors, when the Central Plains cultivators talked about the cultivation world, they often ignored the North Sea cultivation world. North Sea cultivators were rare in the Central Plains to begin with, so even if they did, they would usually be looked down upon. Under such circumstances, there should be very, very few people who understood the North Sea cultivation world, and it could even be said that they disdained to understand the situation of the North Sea cultivation world. But now, Xie Tianyang's question clearly told Lu Ping that the North Sea cultivation world had not faded from the view of the Middle Sea cultivation world. At least, as one of the large sects in Middle Sea, the Xiang Palace was very familiar with the situation of the North Sea cultivation world. Lu Ping smiled with some surprise and said, "Friend, you are quite familiar with my North Sea. I am Lu Xinping of the North Sea Jinling. Greetings to all of you. Are you really a North Sea cultivator?" Li Tong frowned and asked, "There is the primordial crocodile clan in North Sea. I wonder if you know a cultivator called Ao Chuang." Back then, this person was quite talented. If he had not died in Middle Sea, he would be a Dharma adept by now and should have some fame. Haha, the famous golden serpent Laozu can be considered famous in North Sea. Lu Ping was more and more certain that in the eyes of these influential forces in the cultivation world, North Sea had never strayed away from the world of cultivation. TSK, golden serpent Laozu? Li Tong sneered and said, "That stupid crocodile is worthy of calling himself a serpent. How arrogant of him." Lu Ping did not think much of it. Peng Daoren and Zhao Daoren were the two most powerful people among the seventh patriarch when the sky was split open. These two people's fame in the cultivation world far exceeded that of the other five ancestors, and they enjoyed a high status in the cultivation world. This primordial crocodile Ao Chuang actually called himself Golden Serpent Laozu, which was indeed a taboo. This was also in North Sea. If it was in Middle Sea, Ao Chuang would be challenged by countless people, and even the primordial crocodile clan would not be able to protect him. Chapter 775. What's with all this nonsense? Since you're here and want to be the fisherman behind us, then we'll have to see if you have the ability to do so. Let's have a battle first. Ma Chenxi was already impatient from waiting. He only knew that the three of them had fought with Lu Ping. The person in front of him was indeed a strong opponent. No wonder Third Brother would specially send someone to inform him. The current him was overflowing with battle intent. He only wanted to have a great battle with the person in front of him. That's good too. It's not easy to encounter so many opponents of equal strength. It's been a long time since I had such a hearty battle. It's a pity to miss it. Xie Tianyang's battle intent was similarly soaring. Then what are you waiting for? The heavenly gate swimming fish sword in Li Tong's hand had already lit up. His gaze swept across the three of them. A pair of flying swords turned into two strange dragons and charged towards Ma Chenxi. Lu Ping did not say a word and took the initiative to attack. According to Lu Ping's temperament, he was not willing to participate in this chaotic battle. It was just that the other three people's battle intent was soaring. Lu Ping really could not avoid it, so he simply attacked first and caught the other three unprepared. Ma Chenxi was furious. "You dare to attack first. You actually dared to provoke me to attack first." In the cultivation world, the weakest cultivator was usually chosen to attack in group battles. As the saying goes, pick the soft persimmon to pinch. Lu Ping attacked Ma Chenxi the moment he came up. From Ma Chenxi's point of view, Lu Ping clearly thought that Ma Chenxi was the weakest among the three. How could he accept this? Haha, brother Ma, I think brother Lu's choice is not bad. He comes from the North Sea and is definitely not familiar with the cultivation world of the Central Plains. Therefore, his choice is more fair. Brother Ma, you are undoubtedly the weakest in his eyes. Besides, looking at Ma Chenxi's furious expression, Xie Tianyang was especially excited. However, before he could finish speaking, Lu Ping's flowing sword had already arrived with lightning speed. The dense sword light was like a rain that filled the sky. When it landed in front of Xie Tianyang, it turned into countless threads that wrapped around him. Each of the inconspicuous raindrops contained a sharp strand of sword qi. They wandered around Xie Tianyang's body, searching for any possible loopholes in his defense and waiting to strike. Seep sword art. It was another great divine sword technique. What a strange swordsmanship. I wonder if you have taken me into consideration as well? What kind of swordsmanship are you going to teach me? Li Tong was also a great swordsman. When he saw Lu Ping execute the seeping water sword art, he was naturally able to sense the extraordinariness of this great divine swordsmanship. As a result, he was overjoyed and impatiently went forward to ask for guidance. Just as Li Tong finished speaking, he saw Lu Ping raise his hand towards the depths of the river source. Suddenly, a rumbling sound came from the underground as well as from the lake not far away. Water attribute great divine art. Fine, I will compete with you in divine arts today. Li Tong and Lu Ping were the same. They both cultivated the Flood Dragon bloodline's water attribute great divine art. Naturally, he could sense the great divine art that Lu Ping was executing from Lu Ping's movements. A white line suddenly rose in the distance. At this time, the water in the lake of the river source was drawn over by Lu Ping. The underground water vein also suddenly broke through the surface of the ground, creating a water pillar that was several feet high. The two fused together and formed a huge wave that swept towards Li Tong. Water attribute great divine art. One of the North Sea's 12 orthodox arts, blue tide art. Li Tong was from the Koi clan and originally cultivated the water attribute great divine art. Although he was famous for his swordsmanship, this was something that belonged to an ordinary talent. How could he fall behind others? Li Tong kept the flying sword in his hand and then made a strange hand sign with both hands. Then, he scooped up the wave that was coming from the distance. Lu Ping suddenly felt that the rising tide was being pulled by a hidden force and wanted to escape from Lu Ping's control. Sure enough, he was worthy of being a genius cultivator of the Koi clan. However, it was not easy for him to break Lu Ping's great divine art so easily. However, before Lu Ping could fight with Li Tong, Ma Chenxi, who was on the other side, had already blocked Lu Ping's dual flying sword strangulation. Her wind-breaking stab had already counterattacked Lu Ping. Xie Tianyang and Lu Ping's flowing sword collided. Then, the Li Fire Heavenly Yang sword once again ignited with true fire and attacked. However, Xie Tianyang's counterattack was not against Lu Ping, but Ma Chenxi. Clang! The wind-breaking stab flew back. The true fire on the Li Fire Heavenly Yang sword was almost extinguished by the strong wind brought by the wind-breaking stab. Xie Tianyang, I didn't hit you. Why are you blocking me? Ma Chenxi threw out the wind-breaking stab. This time, it was aimed at Xie Tianyang. Haha, we agreed that it would be a battle royale. Naturally, I will fight whoever I don't like. Xie Tianyang had just finished speaking when he exclaimed, Are you kidding me? You can't play like this. Lu Ping's flowing sword didn't let Xie Tianyang off just because he had helped him out. The flying sword was raised and countless white waves rose up. It was accompanied by sword whistles that pierced through spiritual sense. Under the support of Lu Ping's tyrannical spiritual sense, the Li Fire Heavenly Yang sword in Xie Tianyang's hand trembled. The white flames on the sword flickered and were almost extinguished. Xie Tianyang broke out in a cold sweat. What kind of sword technique is this? It's so strange. Lu Ping was about to reply when the wind-breaking stab that Ma Chenxi had shot into the Central Plains suddenly changed direction, heading straight for Lu Ping's chest. Li Tong suddenly struck out with his sword, sending the flowing long sword flying with a single strike. Then, The long sword seemed to have transformed into a swimming fish, leaping into the surging waves. Then, it suddenly shot out from under Ma Chinsi's feet. Ma Chinsi leaped back. Li Tong was about to chase after her, but he suddenly let out a strange cry. He leaned back and flipped to the side. A dark blue sword light narrowly brushed past his shoulder. It almost broke through his protective aura and cut through his clothes. Formless sword technique. Formless sword. Xie Tianyang exclaimed. This was the sword technique that made the North Sea's Fei Ling sect famous. I didn't think that after the Fei Ling sect was destroyed, this sword technique would be passed down in fellows' hands. As he spoke, Li Tong, who had dodged the nether aqua sword, pushed his hands towards Xie Tianyang. An invisible force, along with a huge wave of water, roared towards Xie Tianyang's back. The four of them engaged in a chaotic battle, not differentiating between friend and foe. They only did their best to attack and defend. Lu Ping did not fall into a disadvantageous position in the battle, but he did not use his full strength either. However, Lu Ping also knew that the three of them did not use their respective trump cards either. Right now, everyone was just measuring each other's conventional strength. However, Lu Ping had other ideas at this time. Feeling the increasingly intense call from his bloodline, Lu Ping suddenly made up his mind. He had to be the first to enter the sacred lake. The chaotic battle between the four of them was so huge that it had already attracted the attention of many cultivators who had entered the sacred lake. Lu Ping's divine will had already discovered that there were already many cultivators hiding in the surroundings. However, the battle between the four of them far exceeded that of cultivators of the same level. In addition, there was the fourth young master of the Pegasus clan, the Skygate Sword Li Tong of the Koi clan, and one of the 6 divine swords of the Purple Sun Palace. Each of these 3 people had a fearsome background and were figures who could summon wind and rain in the cultivation world. Naturally, no one would stand out at this time. Back then, Lu Ping, who was able to stand on equal footing with the other 3 and did not fall into a disadvantageous position in the chaotic battle, naturally became the focus of the spectators. Those who knew Lu Ping's identity began to explain Lu Ping's origins to the people who asked them. It was believed that after this battle, the name of the North Sea Jinling cultivator, Lu Xianping, would officially be completely spread among the major sects of the Central Plains. At this time, although Lu Ping was also enjoying this kind of exchange of pointers between opponents of the same level and strength, he was not immersed in this kind of awe-inspiring battle intent. He was not like the other 3. Not to mention that he did not have the support of a tyrannical force behind him. Even if Xinling really wanted to be Lu Ping's shield, how many people here could admit it? At the end of the day, Xinling was far from being comparable to famous sects like the Tenma people, the Koi clan, and the Purple Sun Palace. The Changlu sword that was originally slashing towards Xie Tianyang suddenly disappeared, and when it reappeared, it was already next to Ma Chinsi. The beautiful autumn water sword's whirling chain attack, the Changlu sword's seeping sword technique. These 2 great magical powers were displayed together. One was incisive and aggressive, while the other was gradual. Ma Chinsi cursed angrily, F***CK. He's playing for real. Lu Ping did not care how Ma Chinsi resisted and stretched out his hand to point towards the sky. Unknowingly, the originally clear and cloudless river source suddenly condensed into a dark cloud above. Rays of bluish-purple flashes stretched and contracted in the cloud, and then fell towards Li Tong all at once. Li Tong did not expect Lu Ping to suddenly use such a fierce method. While frantically resisting the lightning that fell from the sky, he shouted, "Enin lightning, you actually know lightning magical powers." If it was only 1 or 2 rays of Enin lightning, Li Tong naturally would not take it seriously, but when dozens of Enin lightning fell all at once, Li Tong had no choice but to take it seriously. Every time Li Tong tried to escape from the lightning net, he would see a ray of blue sword light flying over, forcing Li Tong into the lightning net again. Not good. He wants to enter Sacred Lake first. Xie Tianyang immediately realized where Lu Ping's goal was. Although Lu Ping used all his magical powers, these methods obviously could not cause any harm to Ma Chinsi and Li Tong. It would only entangle the 2 of them and make them unable to use their respective methods. Xie Tianyang straightened the Li Fire Heavenly Sun Sword. and his whole body was suddenly surrounded by a ball of true fire. Lu Ping narrowed his eyes and said fiercely in his heart, "True sun fire, heaven-level high-grade." Lu Ping stretched out his hand and patted his chest, and a small wind banner was grabbed by Lu Ping and gently waved towards Xie Tianyang. Xie Tianyang originally wanted to rely on the true sun fire that he had yet to successfully cultivate to rush towards Lu Ping, but he saw Lu Ping wave a small banner at him, and then he saw Lu Ping's face suddenly turn pale. Although Xie Tianyang did not know what method Lu Ping had used, he also realized that it was not good. He wanted to withdraw and retreat, but he suddenly felt as if his divine will was suddenly smashed by someone with a hammer. This blow was even fiercer than the sword howl divine power that Lu Ping had displayed previously. Xie Tianyang, who was retreating, suddenly staggered and almost fell to the ground. When he finally regained his senses, he saw that Lu Ping had suddenly turned into a ball of flowing water and poured into the palm-sized sacred lake under his feet. Chapter 776. At the source of the river, the outcome of what happened in front of Lake Fallen was beyond everyone's expectations. An unknown North Sea cultivator, who was rumored to be from North Sea Jinling and was called Lu Xianping, actually snatched the first spot to enter Lake Fallen from Ma Qinxi, Li Tong, and Xie Tianyang, who were publicly acknowledged to be invincible among cultivators of the same level. When the three of them saw that Lu Ping actually entered Lake Fallen first, they were stunned for a moment. After a while, Ma Qinxi suddenly flew into a rage. "Damn it, we've been tricked by this kid. He actually entered Lake Fallen before us." "Tricked? If you're so capable, why didn't you, Ma Qinxi, go in first just now?" Xie Tianyang, whose paleness was gradually fading, had a sickly bright red face. It was obvious that he had been shaken quite badly by Lu Ping's banner just now. Li Tong didn't say a word. This time, he learned from Lu Ping. With a flash of light, he was about to rush into Lake Fallen. Ma Qinxi had suffered a loss earlier, so she had been waiting there for a long time. Before Li Tong's escape light reached the middle of the sacred settling lake, there was a tremor in the void, and Li Tong staggered out of the escape light. "Don't even think about it," Ma Qinxi shouted at Li Tong fiercely. Before Li Tong could flare up, Xie Tianyang shouted, "Oh no, they're going to rush over." Lu Ping entering Lake Fallen first finally stirred the nerves of the surrounding cultivators who were spying on them. Li Tong and Ma Qinxi scanned with their spiritual force and discovered that there were indeed two cultivators coming over from the left and right. Immediately, they found an outlet to vent their anger. Ma Qinxi shouted, "Go to hell." Li Tong also snorted coldly and attacked together with Ma Qinxi, sending the two flying. When they landed on the ground, they were already spurting blood. The Tima people and Khoi clan cultivators happened to be at the side, so they immediately went forward to beat the drowning dogs. It looked like the two of them were going to die soon. However, just as the two of them attacked, Li Tong said in a low voice, "We've been tricked again." Ma Qinxi immediately realized that something was wrong. She stomped her foot fiercely, and the entire ground shook. The palm-sized sage lake suddenly surged with waves that were tens of feet high. Li Tong also took the opportunity to jump into the waves with the flying sword in his hand, intending to fish in troubled waters. However, as fast as the two of them were, they were still one step behind Xie Tianyang. The heavenly sun sword in Xie Tianyang's hand transformed into a 30-meter-long fire dragon. The fire dragon breathed out raging flames, blocking the two's attacks. Xie Tianyang, who had turned into a man of fire, had already escaped into Saintly Lake. All that was left was the white mist that rose from the water and fire on the lake surface. Ma Qinxi and Li Tong exchanged glances. By then, the cultivators who were spying on them from the periphery had become increasingly restless. Saintly Lake was right before their eyes, but only 2 out of the 4 top-notch experts from earlier were left. A good number of cultivators had already revealed themselves and were moving towards them. It was clear that they wanted to enter Saintly Lake. The two of them looked at the cultivators from Western Wilderness Palace who were hiding behind the crowd. They saw that the surrounding cultivators actually had the guts to group up and approach the two of them. This was something that had never happened before in the past when the river source opened up. Although the cultivators from the Heavenly Horse clan and Koi clan were still at a disadvantage in terms of numbers, they would often be able to defeat the cultivators who were in a state of disunity. Thus, the two clans would often be able to obtain the greatest harvest in the competition for Saintly Lake. At that very moment, both Ma Chinsi and Li Tong wanted to enter Saintly Lake. However, the key question was which one of them would enter first. Thus, they could only confront each other. However, it was clear that the cultivators in the periphery did not want to continue watching the show. If the two of them were to continue blocking the entrance, they would end up incurring the wrath of the masses. Even if they had a group of cultivators under them, it would be useless. The two of them exchanged glances. Then, Li Tong transformed into a wave of water while Ma Chinsi created a gust of wind. The two of them entered Saintly Lake together. After the two of them entered Saintly Lake, the cultivators who had been restless earlier instantly lost their scruples. Someone shouted out first, and tens of cultivators revealed themselves from every direction as they rushed towards the entrance. However, the entrance to Saintly Lake was too small. It was impossible for tens of cultivators to enter. Thus, before the tens of cultivators could even reach the sky above Saintly Lake, a chaotic battle had already broken out between them. This time, it was truly a chaotic battle. Tens of cultivators fought each other to enter Saintly Lake first. Several li away, more and more cultivators were still rushing over. The scale of the chaotic battle continued to expand. After Lu Ping smashed into Saintly Lake, the special and mysterious power that came from the depths of the lake caused Lu Ping's heart to beat violently twice. However, the mysterious power immediately disappeared. No matter how hard Lu Ping searched, he could no longer sense the existence of the mysterious power. Lu Ping suppressed his curiosity and spread out his divine sense to observe the situation in Saintly Lake. At the same time, he quickly dived into the depths of Saintly Lake according to the rumors circulating in the cultivation world of Western Wilderness. Lu Ping's divine sense immediately sensed an area with an extremely thick spiritual energy. Additionally, there was also an indescribable power within the area. Perhaps, this power was the reason why a cultivator's cultivation base could rise by at least one level after 4 to 5 years of cultivation retreat. Lu Ping's eyes shone with a faint cyan light. He could see a seemingly naturally formed magic array around the spiritual energy gathering ground. Lu Ping knew that the magic array was used to protect the cultivators who were in cultivation retreat. The moment a cultivator entered the spiritual energy gathering ground, the magic array would immediately activate. Unless the cultivator opened it from the inside, it would be extremely difficult for external forces to break the magic array and threaten the cultivator inside. As the spiritual energy gathering ground was so close to the surface of the lake, it was not within Lu Ping's consideration. Lu Ping utilized the water manipulation technique, and an undercurrent flowed out from behind him, pushing Lu Ping to dive deeper into the lake. Lu Ping dived for nearly 100 zhang. Along the way, Lu Ping's divine sense had already sensed 7 to 8 spiritual energy gathering grounds. Although Saintly Lake was shaped like a funnel, the interior of the lake was very large. Although Lu Ping was heading towards the deepest part of the lake, his divine sense could only cover a very small part of the lake. Legend had it that Saintly Lake was 9,900 zhang deep. If a cultivator's cultivation base was not high enough, they would not be able to withstand the immense water pressure at the depths of 9,900 zhang. Although Lu Ping's cultivation base was high, he was unwilling to waste his primary energy on resisting the water pressure. Instead, he placed the water avoidance pearl on top of his head. Instantly, the water pressure around him lessened, and the rate at which he was diving down increased. Lu Ping found that the lake was quiet, and there was no danger. Thus, he slowly retracted his divine sense. He only guarded the area within a radius of tens of zhang. At the same time, he channeled the secret divine sense cultivation technique to nourish his divine sense, which had suffered some damage when he fought against Xie Tianyang earlier. Lu Ping was still holding the small flag that he had used to assist in casting the secret divine sense cultivation technique. This was the small flag that Lu Ping had obtained from a cave in the secret land of Jinling's inheritance. Previously, Lu Ping had not been able to understand the mystery of this small flag. It was only because this small flag had many benefits for Lu Ping's divine sense cultivation and cultivation that he had kept it by his side. At the same time, he was also trying to discover the secret hidden within the small flag. Lu Ping had once heard some strange stories about the senior Zhenling from Lu Tianling and Lao Zhu. He had tried to discover the identity of the senior Zhenling who had left the small flag in the cave, but unfortunately, he had not been able to do so. Lu Ping's divine sense cultivation had become more and more refined over the years. Now, his divine sense cultivation was not much different from those cultivators at the peak of the early Dharma laws stage. As one of the 6 great swordsmen of the 3rd generation of Ziyang Palace cultivators, Xie Tianyang's divine sense cultivation was naturally not bad. Moreover, because he was a sword cultivator, his divine sense also contained a sharp power similar to sword qi. When competing with the divine sense of cultivators of the same level, he was rarely at a disadvantage. However, this time, he had suffered 2 consecutive losses in the hands of Lu Ping. Especially the second time, Lu Ping had shaken his divine sense with the help of the small flag. It was clear that Lu Ping's current divine sense cultivation was terrifying. At this moment, Lu Ping's divine sense detected a sound coming from the surface of the sacred lake. Another cultivator had entered the sacred lake, but he did not know which of the 3 it was this time, Ma Qinxi, Li Tong, or Xie Tianyang. However, in Lu Ping's opinion, among the 3 of them, Xie Tianyang was the most likely to enter first. Compared to the other 2, Xie Tianyang gave Lu Ping a much more dangerous feeling. This was also why Lu Ping had used the divine sense secret technique to attack him just now. Lu Ping dove down 100 feet again. At this time, the information gathered by his divine sense surprised Lu Ping. The water-repelling pearl was suspended above his head, pushing away all the surrounding lake water and forming a circular shield. As Lu Ping dove into the shield, he took out a pieced-together map fragment from his storage magic tool. At this time, Lu Ping could not care less about the discomfort caused by using the divine sense secret technique just now. He tried his best to spread his divine sense in all directions. At the same time, his eyes were fixed on the map fragment in his hand, as if he was confirming something with the surrounding scenery in the lake. Back then, Lu Ping had obtained more than half of the map fragment from Zhenren Li. After combining it with the other half of the map fragment that Lu Ping had obtained from the other koi demon cultivator that had died in Lu Ping's hands a few days ago, Lu Ping originally thought that this map was just used to guide and deduce the location of the sacred lake. Unexpectedly, the latter part of the map was very similar to the shape of the terrain at the bottom of the sacred lake. Although Lu Ping was the first to enter the lake, it was still not easy to find the best spots in the lake. Although it was funnel-shaped and the best spots were in the deepest part of the lake, it wasn't easy to find them. Lu Ping was the first to enter the lake. Lu Ping had now dove more than 2,000 feet, but he had only found a total of 13 or 14 spirit-gathering places. Every time the river source opened, the spirit-gathering places in the sacred lake were constantly changing, but there were at least 20 spirit-gathering places at the bottom of the lake within 2,000 feet. It was obvious that these spirit-gathering places were not easy to find. The map fragment in Lu Ping's hand clearly showed the terrain and scenery of the sacred lake. It also showed the direction of the undercurrents in the sacred lake. The constantly changing spirit-gathering places in the sacred lake were closely related to the direction of the undercurrents in the lake. Now that Lu Ping had this map, he could deduce the location of most of the spirit-gathering places through the direction of the undercurrents. Chapter 777. Although these spirit-gathering places weren't of much use to Lu Ping alone, they were especially important to clans like the Koi Carp clan and Pegasus clan that had sent a large number of clansmen into the lake. Think about it, in just 4 to 5 years, dozens of lake core forging adepts from these 2 clans had collectively increased their cultivation by 1 level. This was a huge boost to the strength of these 2 clans. Although it did not take hundreds of years for lake core forging adepts to advance a level like Dharma adepts, it was normal for them to take decades. If they encountered a serious bottleneck, it was not uncommon for them to be delayed for hundreds of years. Therefore, the importance of the sacred lake did not lie in the promotion of individual cultivators, but in whether there was a monopoly of 1 or 2 clans. Lu Ping finally understood why the Koi clan and the Pegasus clan had set up so many checkpoints on the periphery of the river source. They did not hesitate to offend a large number of cultivators in order to stop them from entering the river source. Every time the sacred lake opened, hundreds of people would sneak into the river source, but the ones who benefited the most were always the Pegasus and the Koi clan. However, these two clans obviously did not want to push things too far. Otherwise, they would not have allowed so many cultivators to enter. Every time the two clans added up, they would only send 50 to 60 people into the river source. In the end, only 40 people from the two clans would be able to get 100 spots. Therefore, once the two clans kept a close eye on the river source, just like this time, it would attract the suspicion of the other clans in the cultivation world. The Western Wilderness Palace, sending cultivators into the river source to instigate other cultivators to rebel against the two clans, was a small matter. The key was that even the Xiang Palace had sent one of the 6 most outstanding swordsmen among their third-generation disciples into the river source. Although the map was precious, Lu Ping and Samling could only occupy 4 spots at most. Now, Lu Ping had only dived 300 feet into the lake and was still far from the bottom, so he did not have to worry about the allocation of spots. He directly followed the map and began to calculate the locations of the places with the richest spiritual energy at the bottom of the lake. Because of the water-repelling pearl, Lu Ping dived very quickly in the sacred lake. He was confident that even Li Tong in his original form might not have such an ability. He had to determine the location of Samling before others found him. Strictly speaking, Samling's background was even more noble than Ma Chinsi and Li Tong. In this sacred lake, there was no reason for Lu Ping not to plan for them. Lu Ping dived all the way to a depth of 700 feet. Using the map, he found 3 spirit gathering places that were extremely close to each other due to the influence of the undercurrent. Along the way, Lu Ping had already discovered more than 50 to 60 places with spiritual energy. Including the places that Lu Ping had yet to discover, there were at least 70 places. In this way, these 3 places with spiritual energy could be ranked in the 20th to 30th place in the entire sacred lake. They were considered very good places. Moreover, Samling's current cultivation was at the 6th stage of the core forging realm. It was already a luxury for him to use such a good place with spiritual energy. Anything better would be a waste. Lu Ping released Samling from the House of Gold and instructed them to cultivate in seclusion in the place with peace of mind. There was no need for Lu Ping to worry about anything else. With Samling's current strength, even a late-stage core forging realm cultivator would be helpless against them if they joined forces. If Samling advanced to the late-stage core forging realm at the same time, his strength would definitely increase greatly. At that time, even if he encountered people like Ma Chinsi and Li Tong, he would still be able to escape unscathed. Lu Ping looked at the 3 places with spiritual energy. After Samling entered, the outer protective array immediately activated. Then, the entire place returned to the same background as the surrounding lake bottom. If one did not look carefully, it would be difficult for a cultivator to discover the existence of a spiritual energy. Even if they discovered it, it would be extremely difficult to break the protective array. After Lu Ping made arrangements for Samling, he sped up his dive again. At this time, Lu Ping had already sensed that the entire sacred lake had begun to shake. At the same time, rumbling sound could be heard from the lake above his head. Lu Ping knew that this was because a large number of cultivators had begun to enter the sacred lake. At this time, the cultivators who had entered the sacred lake could be said to be the best among their peers after the elimination of the Pegasus and Koi Carp clans, the killing in the fog array, and the chaotic battle at the river source. These cultivators could be said to be the best among their peers. They were the seeds that had the hope of advancing to the Dharma manifestation realm in the future. However, even these cultivators added up to nearly 200 people. After entering the sacred lake all at once, this place became the last place for them to compete. Although there had always been 100 places with spiritual energy in the sacred lake for cultivators to choose from, it was extremely difficult to find all 100 places with spiritual energy. Among them, only the Tenma people and the Koi Carp clan had always occupied about 2/5 of the places in the sacred lake. Hence, They had done some research on the distribution of the places with spiritual energy in the sacred lake. After entering the sacred lake, other cultivators had to spend time and effort to find places with spiritual energy in addition to dealing with the challenges of other cultivators. Therefore, although many cultivators understood that the best places to gather spirit energy were in the depths of the sacred settling lake, once a place was found, even if it was only 1,000 to 2,000 feet away from the lake surface and was considered inferior among all the places to gather spirit energy, they had no choice but to take it for themselves. They were afraid that if they were too arrogant and missed this place, they might not be lucky enough to find another place to gather spirit energy when they went deeper. When that time came, they would return to look for the previous place, only to find that it had already been occupied by people who came later. That would truly be a loss that did not make up for the gains. After Lu Ping and Xiet Tianyang entered the sacred lake before Ma Qinxi and Li Tong, Ma Qinxi and Li Tong were not particularly upset. This was because they knew that the few places with spiritual energy in the depths of the sacred lake were extremely difficult to find. The two clans had also spent thousands of years to grasp some of the patterns of the changes in the last few places with spiritual energy. During the opening process of the sacred lake in history, there were often situations where the 100 places with spiritual energy were not completely discovered. Most of these places with spiritual energy that had not been discovered were at the deepest part of the lake, which was 800 to 900 feet deep. Although Lu Ping and Xiet Tianyang were one step ahead, it would be a waste if they could not find the best place with spiritual energy. When Lu Ping was more than 800 feet down, he suddenly realized that the color of the lake water around him was gradually changing. Lu Ping was slightly stunned. The lake water around him had been dyed a faint red, and Lu Ping discovered through his divine telekinesis that the faint red lake water actually contained traces of extremely pure energy, although it was faint. Lu Ping circulated the North Sea wave listening technique in his body, and the energy contained in the surrounding seawater immediately gathered into Lu Ping's body. With a little refinement, it turned into a pure and vigorous trace of spiritual essence in Lu Ping's body. Lu Ping even felt that the bloodline in his body seemed to be improving slightly as the trace of energy was refined. However, even so, it was enough to shock Lu Ping. The improvement of bloodline had always been extremely difficult. One only needed to look at the top demon clan members who claimed to have the direct bloodline of the seventh patriarch to know the importance of bloodline. Although Lu Ping did not search carefully, it was still a little surprising that he only found two places with spiritual energy at the bottom of the lake, which was 800 feet deep. Although the deeper the lake, the higher the quality of the place with spiritual energy, and the harder it was to be found, it still surprised Lu Ping that there were only two places with spiritual energy at the bottom of the lake. It should be known that the sacred settling lake was shaped like a funnel. The deeper the sacred settling lake, the smaller the area at the bottom. However, the places with spiritual energy became more hidden. Lu Ping only hesitated for a moment, then directly explored the bottom of the lake. It was already dark all around. Even the three pure eyes could only see a distance of a few dozen feet in this situation. Although the divine telekinesis was greatly affected at the bottom of the lake, the greater impact came from the lake water's restraint on the divine telekinesis. At this time, at a depth of more than 600 feet, Ma Qinxi and Li Tong each had a treasure hanging above their heads. They were like arrows that had left the bow, overtaking Xiet Tianyang, who was staring at the two of them in shock. Xiet Tianyang also had a treasure hanging above his head. This treasure was called the Water Purification Bowl. Originally, Xiet Tianyang thought that even if he had a fire attribute cultivation and was greatly affected in the sacred settling lake, he would not fall behind the others with this treasure that was rumored to have been obtained from the East Sea Crystal Palace. However, he did not expect that Ma Qinxi and Li Tong also had a water escape treasure that was not inferior to Xiet Tianyang's water purification bowl. In terms of familiarity with the situation in the sacred settling lake, Ma Qinxi and Li Tong were obviously better. Xiet Tianyang shook his head helplessly. Although he tried his best to catch up, the distance between him and Ma Qinxi and Li Tong was getting further and further away. They gradually disappeared into the depths of the dark lake. The next one is that Lu Xinping from the North Sea. However, this guy dives quite fast. He's already 700 feet down, but he still hasn't caught up. Ma Chinzi looked back at Xie Tianyang, who was already out of sight, and said to Li Tong, who was beside her, "This person is from the North Sea and is also proficient in water-tribute spells. It's hard to guarantee that he doesn't have a water-repelling treasure like you and me. It will be extremely difficult to catch up to this person." Li Tong previously fought with Lu Ping, so he had a deeper understanding of Lu Ping's water attribute spells. He had some doubts about being able to catch up to Lu Ping as soon as possible. So what? There are only 5 spiritual gathering places at the bottom of the lake at a depth of 900 feet, and every one of them is extremely difficult to find. Even if he dives down to the bottom of the lake at a depth of 900 feet and can't find anything, wouldn't it be a waste of time? Ma Chenxi disapproved of Li Tong's cautiousness. The spiritual gathering places are a small matter. After all, there are only 5 spiritual gathering places at the bottom of the lake at a depth of 900 feet. The two of us can't occupy all of them. What I'm worried about is whether our actions at the bottom of the lake this time will be seen through by him. This time, Ma Chenxi did not answer immediately. Instead, she thought for a moment before replying, "It shouldn't be. The Flood Dragon Bloodstone may have appeared long ago, but it was discovered by us last time. It can be seen that this matter is extremely secretive. After Jin Wuyo's death, there may be others who know about this matter, but the ones who truly know where the Flood Dragon Bloodstone appears are only my father and your teacher, so you can rest assured." Chapter 778. Strange. We're already at a depth of more than 8,000 feet. Why haven't we caught up with Lu Xinping yet? It's fine if he dives faster than us, but could it be that he has the confidence to find a spiritual energy gathering ground at a depth of 9,000 feet? Ma Chenxi asked with uncertainty as she probed the surroundings suspiciously. It's hard to say. This person's water attribute abilities are actually not weaker than my Koi clan. If he also has a treasure that can assist in escaping through water, coupled with the advantage of entering Sacred Lake first, it wouldn't be strange for him to be able to dive 9,000 feet before us. Li Tong casually answered Ma Chenxi's question, then said, "But what I find strange is that at a depth of 7,000 feet, there are actually 3 spiritual energy gathering grounds that have already closed. Could it be that someone else entered Sacred Lake before Lu Xinping?" Ma Chenxi said disapprovingly, "What's so strange about that? Sacred Lake might not have been discovered by the two of us first. There's no lack of lucky people in this world, just like Lu Xinping. Before this, neither of us would have thought that a cultivator from the North Sea would actually have such cultivation." Li Tong still had some doubts. He raised his eyebrows and said, "Do you think that Lu Xinping is in one of the 3 spiritual energy gathering grounds?" Ma Chenxi snorted disdainfully and said, "If this person found a seclusion ground so easily, he wouldn't have the qualifications to be mentioned in the same breath as us in the future." Although Li Tong had a look of agreement on his face, he still said, "After all, he's from the North Sea. Perhaps to him, a spiritual energy gathering ground 7,000 feet deep is already an amazing place." Ma Chenxi was about to say something, but her divine sense suddenly froze. She then looked down and suddenly said, "Hey, there's light down there." At this time, Li Tong also discovered the abnormality at the bottom of the lake. After looking in the direction that Ma Chenxi was looking at, he asked with some uncertainty, "It seems to be a pearl. It must be the water escape treasure that Lu Xinping used. However, there are many types of pearl-type treasures. I don't know which one it is." As expected, he didn't randomly choose a seclusion ground. "Quick, follow him. We were tricked by him earlier, so we must make him suffer a loss this time." Lu Ping finally slowed down after diving to the bottom of the 9,000 feet deep lake. Although he didn't have to worry about the heavy pressure at the bottom of the lake with the waterproof moon pearl, it was still extremely difficult for Lu Ping to calculate the best places to gather spirit qi. According to the map in Lu Ping's hand, there should be 5 places of gathering spirit qi here. Ma Chenxi heard that Li Tong's words seemed to be somewhat disdainful. Just as he was about to refute, his eyes suddenly widened, as if he had discovered something unbelievable. Li Tong looked down and saw that Lu Ping, who should have died long ago after the breaking wind stinger pierced through his head, suddenly raised his head and smiled at the two people who were hidden in the dark lake. The corner of his mouth was filled with endless ridicule. "We've been tricked," Ma Chenxi secretly cursed, and then quickly became alert with Li Tong. They saw that Lu Ping in the distance suddenly disintegrated into a pool of water and completely merged with the surrounding lake water. Art of sea deception. At the source of the river, at the bottom of the sacred sunset lake, Lu Ping displayed the power of this set of techniques to the extreme, making Ma Chenxi and Li Tong unable to detect whether it was real or fake. The water moon avoiding pearl that was originally hanging above Lu Ping's head and emitting a faint light, causing Lu Ping's figure to be exposed, suddenly disappeared in front of Ma Chenxi and Li Tong. The entire bottom of the lake turned completely dark. Ma Chenxi and Li Tong's hearts suddenly sank. Only then did they realize that although Lu Ping's divine sense was imprisoned at the bottom of the sacred sunset lake, so he could not discover them, their divine sense was also distorted, so they could not discover the hidden Lu Ping. Ma Chenxi and Li Tong's sneak attack previously was only done by Ma Chenxi and Li Tong in the dark, while Lu Ping was in the light. But now, the situation had changed, and it was Lu Ping in the dark, while the two of them were in the light. Thinking about how Lu Ping was able to sneak 300 feet away from them before he was discovered, and thinking about how Xie Tianyang suffered 2 consecutive losses in the hands of Lu Ping, Ma Chenxi and Li Tong's hearts could not help but sink again. At this time, Lu Ping was like a venomous snake hidden in the dark, and could give them a fatal blow at any time the moment they let their guard down. Strictly speaking, this time, Lu Ping took the opportunity of traveling to the Central Plains to come to the Western Wilderness to kill Ma Chenxi. The fourth young master of the Timma people's clan leader, Ma Zhan, was the culprit behind the extermination of the Cyan Fox clan. He was also one of the conditions for the Cyan Fox to agree to work under Lu Ping. The reason was very simple and cliché. Although the fourth young master of the Tenma people was overflowing with talent, he was also the biggest foppish son of the Tenma people. Like most foppish sons, although this fourth young master of the Tenma people was obsessed with cultivation, he was equally obsessed with women. The Fox clan was originally a place where the beastkin cultivators produced beautiful women, and the Cyan Fox clan was the most seductive clan among the Fox clan. Unfortunately, the Fox clan was located in the Western Wilderness. Although it was also a rather powerful force among the beastkin cultivators in the Western Wilderness, how could it compete with the number 1 Tenma people among the 3 royal clans in the Western Wilderness? Therefore, the Fox clan naturally became the fourth young master's hunting ground. It just so happened that the beautiful Cyan Fox clan was seen by the fourth young master of the Ma family during one of his trips, and he was instantly stunned. What happened next was obvious. After being rejected by the Cyan Fox clan, the fourth young master of the Ma family naturally wouldn't let the matter rest, and he repeatedly came to harass the Cyan Fox clan. The Fox clan and the entire Fox clan naturally didn't dare to offend the Timma people. They originally wanted to persuade the Cyan Fox clan to compromise, but the Cyan Fox clan refused to comply. In addition, the Cyan Fox clan's mother, the clan leader of the Cyan Fox clan, also supported her daughter. In the end, the fourth young master of the Ma family flew into a rage out of humiliation, but he didn't succumb to the Tenma people's coercion and temptation. At this point, although the Cyan Fox clan and even the Fox clan had offended the Tenma people wouldn't go so far as to risk universal condemnation and annihilate the Cyan Fox clan. However, things weren't that simple. The Cyan Fox clan wasn't a demon cultivator of the Fox clan, but a descendant of a woman from the Cyan Fox clan and a human cultivator who had fallen in love. After that, the human cultivator disappeared, and the Cyan Fox clan's mother had no choice but to bring the Cyan Fox clan back to the Western Wilderness. For the past 100 years, the Cyan Fox clan's mother had been concealing the Cyan Fox clan's identity as a mixed blood between humans and demons. However, this time, under the persistent harassment of the fourth young master of the Ma family, the Tenma people discovered that the Cyan Fox clan was a mixed blood. The fourth young master of the Ma family immediately acted as if he had obtained a priceless treasure and immediately issued an ultimatum to the Cyan Fox clan. However, the Cyan Fox, who didn't realize the severity of the situation, not only refused to yield, but also fought with the fourth young master of the Ma family. Although the Cyan Fox clan was an outstanding cultivator among her peers, she was no match for the heavenly pride of the Pegasus clan. Soon, she was captured by Ma Chinsi. After that, the Cyan Fox clan's mother appeared out of nowhere and interfered with the Cyan Fox clan's plan. At that time, Ma Chinsi had just broken through to the late core forging stage. Although she was powerful, she wasn't a match for the Cyan Fox clan's leader, who had already advanced to the transcendent stage. On top of that, the Cyan Fox clan's leader was protective of his daughter, causing Ma Chinsi to suffer a great loss. However, Ma Chinsi relied on a treasure bestowed by the elders of the clan to escape from the Cyan Fox clan's leader with severe injuries. Since young, Ma Chinsi had never suffered such a great loss. When the Tima people's leader, Ma Zhan, saw his most beloved son in such a state, he was naturally furious and wanted to stand up for his son. Originally, things weren't that simple. The Cyan Fox clan's descendant, the entire Fox clan, was a rather powerful clan in the western wilderness. There was no reason for the Tima people to fall out with the entire Fox clan over this matter. However, Ma Chinsi brought another piece of news to Ma Zhan. The Cyan Fox clan's leader's daughter was actually a mixed blood. How could this be? The Fox clan was originally a vassal of the white-fronted Tiger clan, one of the 3 royal clans of the western wilderness. After the Tiger clan's power declined, the Tima people urgently needed to expand their power. Naturally, they had to suppress the Tiger clan. At this time, the Cyan Fox clan became the best excuse for the Tima people to expand their clan's power. Chapter 779. A union between a human and a demon was just like the commotion that Xianchu had caused in the North Sea. It was also a taboo topic among the demons. After the Green Fox's identity was exposed, the Pegasus clan did not exert any pressure or question them. Instead, Ma Zhan immediately gathered the elite forces of the Pegasus clan and surrounded the entire Fox clan. A green fox who was a union between a human and a demon was naturally not worthy of the Pegasus clan's efforts. However, when the Fox clan was backed by the Hanging Eyes white-fronted Tiger clan, the Pegasus clan had a reason to make such a big move. The declining Hanging Eyes white-fronted Tiger clan chose to retreat in the face of the overbearing Tima people. After the Fox clan's persuasion failed, the entire Green Fox clan was abandoned by the Fox clan and became the Tima people's sacrificial lambs. The Tima people expanded their traditional sphere of influence in one fell swoop. The Fox clan's power was greatly reduced, and the Hanging Eyes white-fronted Tiger clan's living space was squeezed. The Tima people leapt to become the most powerful royal clan in the entire western wilderness. After Green Fox's mother injured Ma Chinsi with her own hands and allowed him to escape, she immediately realized that she had done a foolish thing. Sensing that something was wrong, the Green Fox clan's matriarch hurriedly sent her daughter away to avoid trouble. However, she never expected that the Pegasus clan's revenge would not be on her daughter, but on the entire Green Fox clan. After entering the western wilderness, Lu Ping originally wanted to postpone his plan to kill Ma Chinsi because of the opening of the river source. After all, the river source was still very attractive to Lu Ping, especially after he discovered the extremely mysterious power that had a strong attraction to his bloodline. However, this time, Ma Chinsi's attack was obviously to kill Lu Ping. How could Lu Ping let it go so easily? Thus, he decided to set up the natal gentian formation in the middle of the sacred lake. Lu Ping did not believe that Ma Chinsi would be able to escape from his hands after he had set up the natal gentian array. Even if he had many treasures given to him by Dharma adepts, it would still be the same, unless a Dharma adept stepped in to rescue him from the gentian array. However, just as Lu Ping summoned the gentian pearl from his core space, he could not help but slow down because he sensed that the water around him had changed again. This slight change made Lu Ping, who had the water and moon pearl and the map of the sacred lake, instantly sense something. Just at this time, a joyous laughter suddenly came from above Ma Chinsi and Li Tong's heads. Ha 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 ha. Xia Tianyang dived down from the water with a treasure that was emitting a purple glow on top of his head. After seeing Ma Chinsi and Li Tong, he immediately laughed and said, "I've finally caught up with you guys." "Hey, what's wrong with you two?" Could it be that there's some danger at the bottom of the sacred lake that I've never heard of? In the pitch-black part of the sacred lake, not far from the three of them, an undercurrent appeared inconspicuous among the many undercurrents at the bottom of the lake. In an instant, it merged with the many undercurrents and headed deeper into the sacred lake. He did not expect that Xie Tianyang would also come at this time. After Lu Ping set up the Jinshan array, if there were only Li Tong and Ma Qinxi, Lu Ping was confident that he could kill them. However, if Xie Tianyang were to join forces with the three cultivators whose abilities were not much different from his, Lu Ping was not confident. Lu Ping did not want to expose himself to the opposing side of the Pegasus and Koi Carp clans. Now that Xiang Palace was involved, the situation would be even more serious. This time, Lu Ping's mission was given to him by the Zhenling sect's ancestors. It was to make a name for himself and spread the name of Zhenling sect in the Central Plains. There was no reason for Lu Ping to face such a strong opponent for himself and Zhenling sect. Lu Ping immediately gave up on the idea of killing Ma Qinxi and Li Tong. Instead, he turned into an undercurrent and followed the previous undercurrent towards the deepest part of the sacred lake. That subtle undercurrent just now made Lu Ping's mind suddenly grasp something. Lu Ping wanted to find the spiritual energy gathering ground at a depth of 9,000 feet before the three of them. The map in Lu Ping's hand was obtained from the Koi Carp clan. The Tima people and the Koi Carp clan had entered and exited the sacred lake several times. Every time, they could find and occupy a large number of spiritual energy gathering grounds at the bottom of the lake at a depth of 7, 8, or 9,000 feet. Once Ma Qinxi and the others entered the bottom of the lake at a depth of 9,000 feet, they would definitely be faster than Lu Ping in finding the best 5 spiritual energy gathering grounds. Xie Tianyang was also a clever person. Seeing the two's expressions, Xie Tianyang immediately understood the cause of the matter and asked in a low voice, "Is it because of Lu Xinping from the North Sea?" Ma Qinxi snorted coldly, while Li Tong laughed bitterly. Xie Tianyang saw the expressions of the two and immediately turned his head to stare at Ma Qinxi. Ma Qinxi was stared at by Xie Tianyang's mocking gaze until the anger in her heart burst forth. Her face turned red, and just as she was about to lose control of her anger, she heard Xie Tianyang suddenly sigh and say, "Why are you so nervous? Not to mention that there are 3 of us here. Even if there were only the 2 of you just now, would it be certain death if you were targeted? That person is at most on par with us." As the saying goes, the onlooker sees the game more clearly. From Xie Tianyang's words, it was obvious that he already knew that the person who wanted to sneak attack was Lu Ping, and he was sure that the one who provoked him first was this bad horse. Although saying it out directly made Ma Qinxi look a little ugly, but looking at the relaxed expressions on Ma Qinxi and Li Tong's faces, it wasn't hard to see that the two were really frightened by Lu Ping just now. However, what they didn't know was that Lu Ping really had the confidence to kill them. Xie Tianyang saying that they were on par was just being presumptuous. Fortunately, Lu Ping left because he discovered the traces of the spiritual energy gathering ground. Otherwise, they might have been able to truly witness Lu Ping's strength. Back then, Jiao Daoren had a horn after his body transformed into a true soul. This was the consensus of the cultivation world. However, what were the horns on Jiao Daoren's back then? Was it a single horn, double horn, or multiple horns? This was something that could not be determined. In Lu Ping's memories, there was an image of a flood dragon, but in this world, he didn't dare to confirm whether the flood dragon he knew was correct. The reason why the 8 strange flood dragons on the surface of Lu Ping's golden core were called strange was because the 8 strange flood dragons on the surface of Lu Ping's golden core did not match any of the various legendary flood dragons in the cultivation world. However, Lu Ping wasn't the slightest bit worried, because these 8 flood dragons that were extremely strange in other people's eyes were developing towards the most sacred mythological beast in Lu Ping's heart. And this mythological beast was the one that had never been mentioned in this world, dragon. Or rather, there were legends. At the very least, the Long Huai that Lu Ping had seen before had the word dragon in his name. It was just that the Long Huai ancestor himself didn't know why his name had the word dragon in it. When Lu Ping followed the faint undercurrent to his destination, Lu Ping suddenly believed that the true soul that Jiao Daoren had achieved back then only had a single horn. This was because there was suddenly an extremely narrow, slender, cone-shaped hole at the bottom of this peculiar sacred lake. The deeper he went, the narrower it became until it formed a pointed cone-shaped hole at the top. Lu Ping thought to himself, could this be because the true soul that Jiao Daoren had transformed back then had been smashed into this shape by his own horn when he fell to the ground? The source of the tiny undercurrent was formed from this hole that was only 3 feet wide at the beginning. Could this be a place where spiritual qi gathered? Lu Ping looked around. He didn't sense any abnormality in the concentration of spiritual qi around him, nor did he discover any protective formation around the place where spiritual qi gathered. Could it be at the bottom of this cone-shaped hole? Lu Ping looked at the slender hole that was about 5 feet deep, and his heart suddenly skipped a beat. However, how could this hole that was only 3 feet wide allow Lu Ping to enter? Although Lu Ping could sometimes use escape techniques and turn his body into flowing water, that was only to make his body look like flowing water. In reality, Lu Ping's body still existed, and he couldn't change shape like flowing water. He could only barely follow the flow. Looking at the hole in front of him, Lu Ping definitely didn't believe that his calculations could be wrong. However, what was going on with this hole in front of him? Even if Lu Ping climbed in, he wouldn't be stuck after climbing 2 feet in. Lu Ping tried to hack at the stone wall of the hole, but the impact made Lu Ping's hands numb. The stone wall at the bottom of the sacred lake looked like it was made of ordinary material, but for some reason, it had become abnormally hard. Even if a cultivator used magic treasures and spells to bombard it, they might not be able to cut off a few pieces. Some cultivators had a sudden idea that such a hard material could be an unknown spiritual material. They spent a lot of effort to chisel out a few pieces of stone from the sacred lake and bring them back to their sections. For this, they missed out on a few good places to gather spiritual qi. However, these few pieces of stone were discarded by the sect's refiners. They thought that they were just ordinary stones that had been compressed by force and could not be used for refining weapons. This cultivator became a laughingstock in the cultivation world for a while. Could it be? Just as Lu Ping was puzzled, a message from the memory of the pure young soul appeared in Lu Ping's mind. Lu Ping was shocked. He looked at the hole in front of him in surprise and thought to himself, a double-layered space? Could it be that there is another space in a space like Lake Sacred Settling? Such a double-layered space was usually created by a cultivator in a grotto heaven magic treasure or a spatial land. However, these embedded spaces had many restrictions. One of the most important things was that the entrance to the outer space might be very small, but the entrance to the embedded space would definitely be very large. Just like the central palace grotto heaven in the Yingtian dojo, the entrance to the outer space was just the mouth of a ceramic bottle, but the entrance to the embedded space was a towering palace. If the 3-foot-wide hole in front of him was really the entrance to the embedded space, it could only mean that the cultivation of the person who created the river source was far stronger than the pure yang cultivator of the Yingtian sect, Fei Tian Laozu. Lu Ping suddenly stepped into the 3-foot-wide hole. Before Lu Ping could bend over and completely shrink his body into the hole, a ripple suddenly appeared in the hole and completely swallowed him. Then, the ripple gradually subsided, and the surrounding scenery changed completely. There was no longer a slender cone-like hole. Chapter 780. Xie Tianyang had now rushed ahead of Ma Qinxi and Li Tong. Just now, after Xie Tianyang had pointed out the worries in the hearts of the two people, he had taken the first step and arrived at the bottom of the 9,000 feet deep lake. Ma Qinxi and Li Tong looked at each other and immediately followed. However, after a while, the two of them lost track of Xie Tianyang. Xie Tianyang's stealth speed in Sacred Lake was definitely not as fast as the two of them. Either Xie Tianyang had used an extremely powerful stealth magic, or Xie Tianyang had found a spiritual energy gathering ground at the bottom of the lake, which was more than 9,000 feet deep. Although there was a power at the bottom of Sacred Lake that could distort a cultivator's spiritual will, Ma Qinxi and Li Tong did not think that Xie Tianyang could shake off their pursuit at such a close distance. Then, there was only one possibility left. Xie Tianyang had actually entered a spiritual energy gathering ground, and the protective array of the spiritual energy gathering ground had automatically activated after Xiet Tianyang crashed into it, concealing his tracks. There were a total of 5 spiritual energy gathering grounds at the bottom of the lake, which was more than 9,000 feet deep. Even though Pegasus and Koi were frequent visitors to Sacred Lake, it was difficult for them to determine the locations of these 5 spiritual energy gathering grounds. Although Purple Sun Palace was more powerful than the 2 clans, their sphere of influence did not cover the entire western wilderness, so their familiarity with Sacred Lake was definitely far inferior to the 2 clans. In that case, there was only one possibility. Xie Tianyang's luck was simply too good. He had actually encountered a spiritual energy gathering ground not far from the bottom of the lake and entered it without knowing it. The ripples on the lake waters behind them grew increasingly violent. Clearly, an increasing number of cultivators had entered Sacred Fall Lake. Additionally, some powerful cultivators were already making their way towards the depths of Sacred Fall Lake. They were getting closer and closer to the 2 of them. There were still 3 spiritual energy gathering grounds at 9,000 feet deep. If they could not find them before the others arrived, then Pegasus and Koi would probably become the laughingstock of others. Lu Ping turned into a cave that was wide at the top and narrow at the bottom. Suddenly, he felt the ground beneath his feet loosen. Lu Ping hurriedly channeled his essential essence to stabilize his body, but unexpectedly, the essential essence in his body suddenly did not listen to him, and his body sank. Dong! As soon as Lu Ping's feet touched the ground, he quickly squatted down. This time, he had fallen to a height of 100 feet. Lu Ping's eyes were focused on the center of the vortex. The spiritual energy there was constantly converging and compressing, and a vast amount of power began to condense. The power gave Lu Ping a sense of potential threat. A colorful cloud suddenly rose around Lu Ping. The cloud gradually dispersed and gradually merged with the bluish-purple light curtain hanging down from the water-controlling flag. A series of whistling sounds came from the spiritual energy whirlpool, and the spiritual energy from all directions was still gathering towards the center. It was unknown where the spiritual energy in the stone room came from, but it seemed that there was no interruption at all. Lu Ping's expression gradually became solemn. His divine sense was very sensitive. At this time, he had already sensed that there was a rhythmic beating in the center of the spiritual energy. The beating was becoming more and more condensed and powerful. Lu Ping's expression gradually changed because he could sense that there was a steady and powerful beating in the center of the spiritual energy. Waves of vitality gradually appeared and became more and more abundant. A heart condensed purely from spiritual energy appeared in the center of the spiritual energy. Clang, clang. Feeling the danger, Lu Ping pointed with 2 of his fingers. The autumn water's sword followed the blood vessels in Lu Ping's body and swam out of the heart space. In the end, it came out from the tip of his finger. It was like 2 swordfish swimming around Lu Ping's body, ready to launch a counterattack at any time against any possible threat. After the spiritual energy heart formed, a long, distant hiss came from the spiritual energy vortex. It seemed to come from ancient times, when the world was first formed. A distant, mysterious pressure came from it, rushing towards Lu Ping. His blood was immediately stirred up and urged to worship, as if he was paying respect to an ancient ancestor. Lu Ping's divine sense resisted this mysterious power that could touch his blood vessels. The 8 strange dragons in the heart space quickly circled around the surface of the golden core, as if they wanted to charge out. Lu Ping's entire aura changed. A mysterious aura rose from Lu Ping's body. The ripples of the blood vessels in his body quickly calmed down, and the mysterious power from the spiritual energy vortex was quickly neutralized. At this moment, the surrounding spiritual energy finally stopped gathering. The huge amount of spiritual energy that had condensed in the center of the stone chamber had formed a spiritual mist that was almost liquefied. Dong! The entire ground shook, as if an ancient beast had traversed through space and time to walk towards Lu Ping. Dong! Another sound was heard. A thick, giant claw broke through the spiritual mist and stepped on the ground, causing the entire ground to tremble. Lu Ping felt a stabbing pain in his body. These thin strands of spirit energies immediately entered his blood vessels and turned into surging true essence qi. Unexpectedly, there was no need for Lu Ping to refine it. It integrated with the true essence produced by the North Sea wave listening technique. It followed along the blood vessels and gathered in the core space. Chapter 781. After the spirit qi that pierced into Lu Ping's body merged with Lu Ping's true essence at an extremely fast speed, Lu Ping immediately sensed that after the spirit qi merged, the true essence of the North Sea wave listening technique that Lu Ping cultivated was trying to change. Lu Ping's intuition told him that these changes were not unbeneficial to him, but this change seemed to start from the golden core in the core space, where the essence of Lu Ping's cultivation gathered. However, after this true essence merged into the core space and gradually transformed into a mist that could be absorbed by the golden core, an inexplicable suction suddenly came from the golden core. The 8 strange dragons seemed to have sensed something from the changes in the surrounding mist. They all hovered on the surface of the golden core, as if they wanted to rush out of the golden core. Lu Ping could sense that at this moment, his golden core seemed to have discovered something delicious. With a thought from Lu Ping, the North Sea wave listening technique circulated in Lu Ping's body. A mist that was assimilated by this true essence immediately floated toward the golden core. The 8 strange dragons gathered in the direction of this mist, as if they could not wait to fight for the delicacy in their hands. In desperation, Lu Ping could only turn this small mist into a thin mist, barely enveloping Lu Ping's huge golden core. Only then did the 8 strange dragons divide the mist equally. Although Lu Ping escaped from the giant crocodile's mouth, he was also sent flying. Lu Ping quickly circulated the true essence in his body, trying to stabilize himself and slow down the impact of being sent flying. However, this true essence took the opportunity to converge into the core space. Before Lu Ping could stop it, it had been absorbed by the golden core. Lu Ping hurriedly looked inside, trying to check if there was a problem with his true essence. However, at this time, Lu Ping was fighting with the giant crocodile. How could Lu Ping be distracted to do these things? Just as Lu Ping was focusing on checking the true essence in his body, the long tail of the giant crocodile had already intercepted Lu Ping in midair. Lu Ping, who was startled, had no time to recall the dual flying swords that were temporarily out of control after being knocked away by the giant crocodile. He directly used the flowing sword and slashed, but it seemed to have slashed into the void, and then a sudden strong force bounced back. Lu Ping seemed to have been hit by a huge blunt object. The light curtain hanging down from the water-controlling flag was completely flattened like a bubble that was about to be squeezed. Lu Ping hurriedly used the protective magic power, and at the same time, white jade lotus flashed from the light curtain, barely maintaining the protective light curtain of the water-controlling flag. However, although Lu Ping took the blow of the giant crocodile's tail, his whole body was involuntarily smashed back in midair, hitting the stone wall in the cave mansion. Lu Ping suddenly felt a burst of blood in his body, and he couldn't help but cough a few times. Not far away, the giant crocodile also let out a painful hiss. After all, the flowing sword was a spirit-nourishing flying sword. Although the true essence sword technique was not a great magic sword technique, with the support of Lu Ping's strong true essence, it had the power of a great magic sword technique. The long tail of the giant crocodile was hit by the flowing sword. Although the flowing sword was knocked away, the long tail of the giant crocodile was also cut in half. Lu Ping cast out the beautiful autumn dew sword, and the twin swords flew out one after another, casting a great skill. Spinning chain slash. One after another, the twin swords slashed at the giant tail that was cut open by the long stream sword. Crack, a crisp sound rang out, and the long tail of the giant crocodile was cut off. Before the long tail fell to the ground, it turned into traces of rich and strange spirit qi, directly injected into Lu Ping's body. Lu Ping didn't even have a way to dodge. When the spirit qi was injected into Lu Ping's blood, it almost didn't need Lu Ping to refine it, directly turned into pure true essence, converging into Lu Ping's core space, and then turned into red clouds. Without waiting for it to affect more of the true essence, it was absorbed by the 8 strange dragons on the surface of the golden core. Lu Ping could clearly feel that every time the strange dragons on the surface of the golden core swallowed and spat out a strange true essence, Lu Ping's cultivation was extremely obvious. Although this increase was not significant, Lu Ping could clearly feel it. The giant crocodile that had lost an extremely tyrannical attack method after its giant tail was broken, so it became more and more irritable. The giant crocodile's flat mouth suddenly lifted up and then suddenly paused. The giant mouth suddenly opened, and a pure spirit chi spewed out from the giant mouth, then turned into rolling waves that swept towards Lu Ping. Great magic technique. This giant crocodile actually knew great magic techniques. Lu Ping's hands made a few gestures in succession. The water manipulation technique was activated, and the rolling spiritual power was injected into the waves of spirit chi, beginning to compete with the giant crocodile for control of the waves. Although Lu Ping's water manipulation technique claimed to be able to control all water in the world, this wave of spiritual power was, after all, the magical power of the giant crocodile. Although Lu Ping could obstruct and weaken this wave, he couldn't completely annihilate it. Lu Ping had no choice but to increase the injection of his own true essence, intending to try to control this pure wave of spiritual power again. However, a strange power suddenly surged in the wave and began to corrode Lu Ping's true essence. However, Lu Ping's true essence was condensed and strong, especially after condensing the profound essence heavy water and the 10,000 wonder dew. The true essence in Lu Ping's body could be said to be condensed to the extreme. The corrosive power in the wave of spiritual power was almost negligible to Lu Ping's true essence. However, the magical power of the giant crocodile reminded Lu Ping that if there was a method that could corrode true essence and weaken the strength of cultivators, which one could compare to the 10,000 poison serum. The protective aura on the surface of Lu Ping's body began to retract layer by layer, and finally, only the last layer of pale golden 10,000 poison meteorite energy gang was left. As the true essence was injected into the 10,000 poison meteorite energy gang, the protective aura shone brightly, and then it also turned into a golden wave that rushed towards the wave of spiritual power. With a peewed sound, the two waves suddenly collided, and a burst of chi-chi sounds rang out. The 10,000 poison meteorite energy gang quickly gained the upper hand and began to corrode, assimilate, and absorb the spiritual power wave. The true essence in Lu Ping's body rapidly grew, and the 8 strange dragons on the surface of the golden core became more and more active. Lu Ping could clearly feel that the golden core in the core space was slowly growing, and his cultivation was constantly gaining the upper hand, advancing towards the peak of the 8th layer of core forging. On the contrary, the giant crocodile on the opposite side continued to fight. Due to the loss of its sawteeth, tail, and spiritual power wave, the giant crocodile's body continued to weaken, gradually becoming more and more transparent. Seeing this, Lu Ping hurriedly flicked a few drops of 10,000 poison serum into the body of the giant crocodile during the battle. The giant crocodile's methods were constantly broken by Lu Ping, and it seemed to feel that something was wrong. Its whole body suddenly changed, and a layer of blue light wrapped around its 4 feet. The blue light continued to transform and gradually formed a small stream. Under the accompaniment of the stream, the giant crocodile's previously bloated and clumsy body suddenly became agile and fast. As the stream meandered, Lu Ping's previous advantage of agility suddenly disappeared. However, Lu Ping's methods were naturally not limited to these. Just as the giant crocodile began to close in on Lu Ping, the landslide fell once again. This time, the giant crocodile was prepared. Its body that was originally rushing towards Lu Ping suddenly stopped, and the landslide suddenly smashed in front of the giant crocodile's head. However, although the giant crocodile seemed to be quite intelligent, it was not a living creature after all. It could not compare to the intelligence of a cultivator. Just as the giant crocodile avoided the heavy pressure of the landslide, a dark cloud had already gathered in the deep space above the cave. A bolt of lightning struck the giant crocodile's body before the thunder had even descended. This time, the giant crocodile had no way to dodge. The seven-colored lightning exploded on its huge body, leaving a 1-foot-wide hole. The giant crocodile's body became more and more transparent. Lu Ping's eyes narrowed. Amidst the flickering green light, he discovered that in the giant crocodile's chest, a heart condensed from pure spirit qi was beating vigorously. With a thought, Lu Ping's dual flying swords turned into the seeping sword art. Countless raindrop-like sword qis surrounded the giant crocodile from all directions and began to cut its body. Wisps of strange spirit qi, after being separated from the giant crocodile's body, automatically gathered in Lu Ping's blood vessels and transformed into pure and thick true essence. Then, it turned into Dan Qi in his core space, and after being swallowed and refined by the strange flood dragon, it turned into wisps of true essence and gathered in his gold core. The spiritual energy giant crocodile was too busy to deal with the sword qi attacks from all directions. It was only roaring as if it were venting the fury in its heart. However, it did not notice that a barely perceptible blue light was flashing among the dense sword qi. Under Lu Ping's control, the nether water sword was already hovering above the giant crocodile's back without it noticing. Lu Ping's hand seals dispersed, and he suddenly shouted in his heart, "Fall!" The nether water sword abruptly pierced through the hole that had just been blasted open by the seven treasures' thunder gourd, and in one fell swoop, it pierced through the heart formed by pure spiritual qi in the giant crocodile's body. After the nether water sword pierced through the heart, the giant crocodile's body suddenly trembled. Lu Ping actually saw a trace of fear in the giant crocodile's eyes, which were condensed from spirit qi. However, before Lu Ping could think too much, the giant crocodile's body began to disintegrate, turning into wisps of strange true essence that gathered in Lu Ping's body. A moment later, the giant crocodile disappeared, and the spirit qi in the cave mansion also disappeared. Although Lu Ping could feel his body brimming with true essence, there was still a long way to go before he could advance to the peak of the 8th layer of core forging. Could it be that this was how the spirit qi gathering place was like? Relying on spirit qi transformed from spirit qi to fight against cultivators, absorbing the strange spirit qi into one's body and improving the cultivator's cultivation? However, this method was far from enough to satisfy Lu Ping's needs to advance to the 9th layer of core forging. Could it be that Lu Ping's true essence far surpassed others, and the strange true essence transformed from the giant crocodile was unable to satisfy Lu Ping's needs to advance? At this moment, Lu Ping suddenly discovered that the nether water sword was still suspended in midair in the center of the cave mansion. At the tip of the nether water sword, there was a spirit qi heart that had been pierced. It had not disintegrated along with the giant crocodile's body, but was still hanging on the sword. Lu Ping stretched out his hand to summon the nether water sword, and carefully examined the spirit qi heart on the tip of the sword. Only then did he discover that the spirit qi heart had almost condensed into a solid form. Chapter 782. The heart formed from spiritual energy slowly fell onto Lu Ping's hand. The moment the heart made contact with Lu Ping's hand, a pure and abundant spiritual energy, far stronger than before, flowed through his hand and into his blood vessels. Lu Ping only needed to refine it slightly before it transformed into pure primary energy and flowed into his core space. Lu Ping was shocked. This was the spiritual energy that he had subconsciously absorbed earlier. The primary energy transformed from the spiritual energy was like a raging wave that roared through Lu Ping's blood vessels. When it rushed into his core space, Lu Ping's entire body was shaken. If it weren't for the 8 WIRMs opening their mouths to absorb the primary energy, Lu Ping's body might have exploded the moment he came into contact with the spiritual energy heart. Even so, Lu Ping immediately realized that this spiritual energy heart was definitely a rare treasure. If he could resolve the violent spiritual energy contained within it and slowly absorb it into his body, the boost to his cultivation would be no less than that of a large spirit vein. Once he thought of this, he immediately took action. After confirming that there were no other dangers in his surroundings and that he still couldn't find an exit, Lu Ping simply sat cross-legged in the center of the cave mansion and began refining the spiritual energy heart. Holding the spiritual energy heart in his hands, a purplish-blue light emerged from Lu Ping's hands. The light gradually spread to the spiritual energy heart before enveloping the entire heart. The reason why he used his own primary energy to envelop the spiritual energy heart was because Lu Ping found that the condensed heart was slowly evaporating. Spiritual energy was constantly escaping from it. If he did not use his primary energy to envelop it, the spiritual energy would inevitably be wasted. After Lu Ping's primary energy completely enveloped the entire spiritual energy heart, Lu Ping's face immediately turned red. Then, it became a purplish-blue color, as if there was a deep sea rippling on his face. Lu Ping operated the North Sea wave listening technique to its limits. Even though Lu Ping could not be more careful and was only attempting to absorb a small portion of the spiritual energy from the spiritual energy heart, even this small portion of energy was enough for Lu Ping to display all of his abilities in order to transform the spiritual energy into his own. This was only possible because Lu Ping had refined the profound heavy water and myriad wonder jade nectar. If it was anyone else, in order to prevent the spiritual energy contained within the spiritual energy heart from exploding, they would have to place the spiritual energy heart beside their body to absorb the spiritual energy from afar. Although this could weaken the impact of the spiritual energy contained within the heart, it would also cause a large amount of spiritual energy to dissipate and cause losses in the process of absorbing spiritual energy from afar because there was no primary energy to cover it. This spiritual energy heart was only 1 foot in size, but the spiritual energy condensed within it had reached an astonishing density. Lu Ping's full strength in refining the primary energy in his body could create an extremely shocking scene of spiritual energy being absorbed and spat out. However, this scene was insignificant for this spiritual energy heart. After an unknown amount of time, Lu Ping stopped operating the North Sea wave listening technique. When he looked down, he found that the spiritual energy heart in his hands had only shrunk a little. The remaining heart was even more condensed, and the spiritual energy contained within it had already condensed into a solid form. Lu Ping smiled bitterly. He had no choice but to calm down and continue refining. He would treat this as a closed-door training session. However, Lu Ping could not help but wonder if this was the true secret of the place where spiritual energy gathered in the sacred lake. It was through this specially condensed spiritual energy that cultivators could refine and absorb to achieve the purpose of improving their cultivation. This was because Lu Ping could clearly feel that during the process of refining the spiritual energy heart, Lu Ping's cultivation was rapidly rising towards the door of the 9th stage of the core forging realm. The smaller the spiritual energy heart became, the more difficult it was to refine. When the entire heart became the size of a pill, Lu Ping's originally calm expression suddenly changed. After a while, it became a little strange, but there was a trace of joy mixed in with the strangeness. At the core of this heart, there was a dark blue object constantly flowing. Lu Ping's bluish-purple primary energy continued to permeate this core pill. After an unknown amount of time, Lu Ping's face lit up. When he looked at the pill in his hand again, the dark blue object inside had disappeared. In the core space of Lu Ping's heart, there was a dense cloud of red light surrounding the golden elixir. As the North Sea wave listening technique that Lu Ping practiced was an extremely mysterious technique. This technique took into account the purity and richness of the primary energy. Therefore, every time the primary energy essence that was refined in the bloodline flowed into the core space, it would first gather around the golden elixir to form a dense cloud of red light. Then, the cloud of red light would be continuously refined by the strange dragon on the surface of the golden elixir into the purer and more condensed primary energy essence. This would then be absorbed by the golden elixir and used to strengthen Lu Ping's foundation and as the foundation for improving his cultivation. And at this moment, in this purple cloud of red light, there was a dark blue object rolling in the cloud of red light. This object was the one that had been in the core of the spiritual energy heart. It was rumored that before Dharma adepts condensed their own special ability seed, they would first condense in the core space a rune that was condensed from this special ability. This rune was also known as a rune. In short, it was an extremely mysterious pattern. And when a practitioner advanced to the Dharma stage, as the Dharma power was born from the golden elixir, there would be a chance that this rune would be captured and refined by the newborn Dharma power when it needed to absorb large amounts of spiritual energy. From there, the rune would condense into a special ability seed in the Dharma power and become a special ability. Of course, although it was extremely difficult to condense this type of special ability rune in the core space, but even if it was successfully condensed, when the practitioner advanced to the Dharma power stage, it was rare for it to be captured and refined by the Dharma power. Most of the runes would disintegrate when the Dharma power was formed, turning into pure primary energy to nourish the newly formed Dharma power. Therefore, there were often some cultivators at the peak of the core forging stage who, before advancing to the transcendent stage, would condense several great divine power runes in the space of their heart. Then, when they finally advanced to the transcendent stage, it was a joyous matter to be able to coincidentally form a great divine power of their own. However, core forging stage practitioners usually only had the opportunity to condense this type of rune in the cloud of red light after they advanced to the peak of the core forging stage and smelted the third type of spiritual energy. It was almost unheard of in the world of practice that anyone could condense a rune in the cloud of red light before achieving a high-grade golden elixir. However, after Lu Ping absorbed the dark blue object in the spiritual energy heart, a dark blue rune actually formed in the cloud of red light in the core space. Lu Ping could feel that this dark blue rune was different from the dark blue object in the spiritual energy heart. However, the formation of this rune was closely related to the dark blue object in the spiritual energy heart. What made Lu Ping even more surprised was that the rune was not condensed by one of the great magical spells that Lu Ping had already mastered, but water manipulation technique. Although the water manipulation technique was one of the 12 secret spells that Lu Ping cultivated in the North Sea Wave listening technique, the water manipulation technique in Lu Ping's hands was no less powerful than a great magical spell. However, the water manipulation technique itself was not a great magical spell. It was a type of spell that changed according to the depth of the cultivator's cultivation. It should be considered the most basic spell of the North Sea 12 orthodox techniques and could be considered a kind of foundation for water element spells. However, right now, in the cloud of red light in Lu Ping's core space, a water manipulation technique had condensed and completely upgraded the water manipulation technique to a great magical spell. This was something that Lu Ping did not expect. After thinking about it, Lu Ping had once used the water manipulation technique when he was resisting the spirit Qi giant alligator's great magical spell. By competing with the giant alligator for control of the spiritual energy waves, the power of the giant alligator's spell was weakened. Could it be because of this that the water manipulation technique's rune condensed in the cloud of red light in the core space, causing the water manipulation technique to upgrade to a great magical spell? Although these were all Lu Ping's guesses, there was one thing that Lu Ping did not doubt. The condensation of the Danxia rune was definitely related to the blue object in the core of the spirit Qi giant alligator's heart. When Lu Ping finished refining the last trace of concentrated spiritual energy, there was no trace of the spirit Qi heart in his hand. Lu Ping jumped up from the ground, and his whole body emitted a huge aura fluctuation. After a short moment, these fluctuations were completely restrained, and from the outside, he looked like an ordinary youth. Feeling the vigorous, true essence circulating in his body, Lu Ping secretly sighed in pity. He was only one step away, and Lu Ping's cultivation was still stuck at the peak of the 8th layer of core forging. In the end, he was unable to cross the hurdle of the 9th layer of core forging. He had encountered a bottleneck. If the spirit Qi heart was just a little bigger, then perhaps he could have broken through the bottleneck of the 9th layer of core forging. Lu Ping's face was full of regret. The bottleneck of the 9th layer of core forging wasn't so easy to break through. If he missed this opportunity, then it might be another 8 to 10 years later. However, when Lu Ping thought about how refining the spirit Qi heart had saved him at least 10 years of cultivation, he couldn't help but sigh at his own greed. Counting with his fingers, Lu Ping unexpectedly spent nearly a year refining the spirit Qi heart. This caused Lu Ping to be greatly surprised. Although refining the spirit chi heart was difficult, in Lu Ping's opinion, it was only a matter of a few days. How did a year unknowingly pass by? Looking up at the vast and boundless pitch-black sky, Lu Ping didn't know what to do for a while. Could it be that he would have to continue his seclusion until the river source closed? Lu Ping looked around the cave mansion. Originally, the cave mansion was filled with rich spiritual energy, but now there was no trace of spiritual energy. The spiritual energy that had previously gathered to form the giant crocodile had also disappeared without a trace. Just as Lu Ping was anxiously pacing around, a muffled sound suddenly came from the cave mansion. Lu Ping was startled, and when he turned to look, he saw that in the center of the cave mansion, a cave entrance had unknowingly appeared on the ground. When Lu Ping looked from the side, he saw a spiral stone staircase leading downwards. From afar, he could still see a stone mansion below. A wave of spiritual energy rushed out from the cave entrance and rushed towards Lu Ping. Lu Ping took a deep breath. The spiritual energy below was actually even more vigorous than when he first entered the cave mansion a year ago. Chapter 783. Without hesitation, Lu Ping walked down the stone steps at the entrance of the cave. Just as Lu Ping entered the cave entrance behind him disappeared. When Lu Ping turned around, he saw that the stone steps under his feet were continuously disappearing as Lu Ping walked down. At this moment, the dense spirit chi in the cave began to gather toward the center again. When Lu Ping looked down from the high stone steps, a dense spirit mist had already formed. He just didn't know what kind of spirit beast would form this time, and how its strength would compare to the spirit chi giant alligator from before. When Lu Ping came down from the stone steps to the ground of the cave mansion, he realized that the cave mansion he was in was one size smaller than the previous one. A resounding hiss came from the spirit mist. Lu Ping's expression became serious, and at the same time, there was a trace of surprise and curiosity. Before the spirit beast could come out of the spirit mist, a flying spike had already pierced through the spirit mist and shot toward Lu Ping's face. As expected of the Tenma people, Lu Ping looked at this divine ability spell that was formed from the horn of the Tenma people. He just didn't know if he used his own divine ability to block this attack. When the time came, would there also be a rune pattern condensed in the Danxia? With a thought, Lu Ping's fated person in autumn sword flew out in rapid succession, and the flying spiral chain slashed at the flying spike. The flying spike was split into a ball of dense spirit chi, and it went straight into Lu Ping's heart. A painful hiss came out, and there was the sound of 4 feet stomping on the ground. A ball of spirit mist kept tumbling, as if it was going to rush out of the spirit mist. Then, the spirit fog suddenly exploded, and a 2-meter-tall, 3-meter-long giant horse rushed out of the spirit fog. The scattered spirit objects behind the giant horse constantly shrank, finally forming a 3-meter-long ponytail. The giant horse roared and looked at Lu Ping with resentment. The horn on its head became illusory. It was obvious that Lu Ping's attack had injured it quite badly, so when it saw Lu Ping, it was abnormally angry. It could still be angry? There was no time for Lu Ping to think. The giant horse had already roared toward Lu Ping. The crisp sound of the horse's hooves on the stone floor made a gee sound, as if each sound was trampling on Lu Ping's heart. As the giant horse ran closer, the sound of the horse's hooves became more and more intense and loud. The strange dragon and Lu Ping's heart space roared together. Although there was no sound, Lu Ping's divine sense suddenly felt like it was poured by a clear spring. Lu Ping suddenly woke up, and only then did he realize that his body was already covered in cold sweat, and his heart was beating so fast that it was about to explode. Lu Ping was shocked. With a single strike of the landslide, the Pegasus violently struggled and fainted. Then, with a slash of the long stream sword, Lu Ping chopped off one of the Pegasus' legs. Immediately after, the fated person in autumn waters transformed into the seeping water sword and broke through the Pegasus' defense. The spiritual energy of the Pegasus was sliced into pieces, turning into drops of spiritual energy that formed a vertical whirlpool above Lu Ping's head. Hopefully, this heart would allow him to step into the 9th level of the core forging realm. After the Pegasus was defeated, it still left behind a huge heart. It was different from the huge heart of the spirit Qi giant alligator. This Pegasus's heart was much smaller, and from the outside, it looked a lot clearer. Lu Ping could even see a blurry green object in the center of the heart. Lu Ping was secretly delighted. He wondered what kind of incantation patterns would form in the red glow after he refined the heart. Although forming the incantation patterns in his heart core didn't mean that he would be able to form the incantation seeds when he advanced to the Avatar realm, it was still impossible for him to form the incantation seeds when he advanced to the Avatar realm. But without the incantation patterns in his heart core, he would never be able to form the incantation seeds when he advanced to the Avatar realm. What's more, condensing a divine power rune in the core space was a huge boost to Lu Ping's strength. Otherwise, the art of water manipulation wouldn't have been able to completely restrain the Pegasus, which was at the peak of the core forging realm. In a flash, another year passed by. After Lu Ping finished refining the Pegasus's heart, Lu Ping's face was filled with regret. In the end, he still wasn't able to break through to the 9th level of the core forging realm. It wasn't because the heaven and earth spiritual energy condensed by the spirit Qi Pegasus was insufficient, but just as Lu Ping was about to break through the bottleneck, something else happened. Lu Ping drew a circle in front of him, and 12 gentian beads floated in front of Lu Ping. Of the 12 beads, 8 had already condensed their 7th restriction and became spirit-nurturing treasures. Previously, Lu Ping had successfully upgraded 2 of the Essence Chan beads into spirit-nurturing mystic treasures. This time, just as Lu Ping was one step away from advancing to the 9th layer core forging realm, 6 of the 12 Essence Chan beads that were revolving around the golden core suddenly began to compete with the 8 strange flood dragons in the golden core for the essence of the red mist. Lu Ping's eyes lit up. This wasn't the first time that Lu Ping had encountered such a situation. The sudden eruption of the gentian beads had saved Lu Ping several times. This was especially true when celestial phenomenon Laozu passed his second transcendence tribulation, and when Lu Ping accepted the pure yang soul of the pure yang cultivator, Fei Tian Laozu, in the central palace of the Yingtian dojo. It was only because of the gentian beads and the strange dragons that his body didn't explode. Lu Ping didn't stop this from happening. Instead, when the gentian beads seemed to be able to advance by absorbing the essence of the Danxia, Lu Ping began to help them with all his might. Lu Ping did this for a reason. In fact, all natal treasures had a characteristic of giving feedback to their masters. The gentian beads were the same. Every time the gentian beads advanced with Lu Ping's help, they would refine and sublimate their own essence. So when the gentian beads advanced successfully, a part of their essence would often be fed back to Lu Ping's golden core. And this part of the essence fed back could often be directly absorbed by Lu Ping's golden core to improve his own cultivation, but more importantly, it was to consolidate his own foundation. Lu Ping had always had a worry. Although Lu Ping's current cultivation base was strong and his foundation was solid, Lu Ping was still too young compared to cultivators of the same level. His cultivation time was too short. It took him more than 100 years to complete the accumulation of ordinary cultivators of 300 years, or even 500 years. Although his cultivation seemed solid, it lacked the accumulation of the vicissitudes of time. Compared with those cultivators who spent hundreds of years to accumulate and polish their true essence, his true essence was pure and thick, but it was a bit more raw and less mellow. It was precisely because of this that Lu Ping gave up the breakthrough at the last moment and relied on improving his cultivation base. Instead, he let the gentian beads absorb the essence of the spiritual qi. At the same time, according to the records in the North Sea Wave listening spell, he began to use his divine sense to engrave a treasure on the gentian beads to improve the quality of the natal treasure. And after the essence of the true essence was filtered by the gentian beads and fed back to the golden core, one of the characteristics contained in the true essence was obviously increased, and that was the characteristic of a trace of pure yang qi. Lu Ping had captured a trace of pure yang qi when Lao Tzu was undergoing his tribulation and refined it in a narrow escape. However, most of the essence was obtained by the gentian beads, the white jade lotus, and the seven thunder treasures calabash, and the golden core only absorbed a small part. It was not because Lu Ping wanted to do so, but because the pure yang qi was not something that Lu Ping could control. If it was not for the help of the natal gentian formation and the seven thunder treasures calabash, Lu Ping would have been burned to ashes by the pure yang qi. Later, although Lu Ping's true essence also carried the characteristics of pure yang qi because of the pure yang qi absorbed by the golden core, this characteristic seemed to be very small. If it was not for the help of the natal gentian formation, Lu Ping would not have been able to survive the inheritance of the pure yang soul from Lao Tzu. Now that the pure yang qi in the gentian beads flowed back, although Lu Ping's cultivation base did not make a breakthrough, the quality of the true essence had been greatly improved because of the increase of the pure yang qi. The most obvious improvement was that when the same magical power was cast by Lu Ping, the power was 30%, 50%, or even 100% stronger than that of cultivators of the same level. Chapter 784. Although Lu Ping wasn't able to use the spirit chi Pegasus's heart to increase his cultivation to the 9th core forging stage, the benefits he received were no less than an increase in his cultivation. Probing his body with his divine sense, Lu Ming noticed that the originally dense purple Dan Yun had become a lot thinner. Therefore, the two runes that were condensed from the spirit chi Pegasus's heart had become much clearer. One of the runes was naturally condensed from the spirit chi giant crocodile's water manipulation art. The other rune, which was somewhat illusory, was refined from the spirit chi Pegasus heart. Originally, Lu Ping thought that he might be able to obtain a rune that was related to a powerful sword technique. However, to Lu Ping's disappointment, the rune that was condensed from this rune was actually the art of sea deception. Lu Ping remembered that in Zhenling's land of inheritance, Lu Ping had obtained a small escape technique. He had fused it with the art of sea deception, allowing Lu Ping's flying escape technique to improve by a lot. However, as Lu Ping's cultivation continued to increase, the art of sea deception became more and more refined under Lu Ping's hands. However, the flying escape technique had once again become outdated. Although Lu Ping had the ocean crossing boat as a means of transportation, which temporarily alleviated the problem of flying, Lu Ping had always wanted to find an escape art that was suitable for him. Now, in Lu Ping's Dan Yun, the rune for the art of sea deception had already been condensed. After fusing with the green essence from the spirit chi Pegasus heart, Lu Ping's escape technique had finally improved. Although it wasn't as good as a good escape technique, it at least had the appearance of a powerful escape technique. Just as Lu Ping was wondering if there was a third cave mansion that led underground, the ground immediately trembled. Lu Ping hurriedly dodged to the side, and a cave entrance appeared in front of Lu Ping. Following the spiral staircase, Lu Ping felt the density of the spiritual energy increase again. He also noticed that this cave mansion was also a circle smaller than the previous one. The 3 stone mansions were arranged vertically, and each was smaller than the previous one. If one looked at them as a whole, they would look like an inverted stone tower with a wide top and a narrow bottom. It was also a mist that was condensed from dense spiritual energy. However, it was unknown what kind of monster it was this time. Based on the 2 giant beasts that appeared last time, whether it was the primordial giant crocodile or the spirit chi Pegasus, they were the direct descendants left behind by Jiao Daoren. They were the top races among the monster race. This time would not be an exception. However, it was said that Jiao Daoren was extremely dissolute in the past. He had a group of concubines and left behind the most bloodline races among the 7th patriarch. At that time, the number 1 expert in the cultivation world was naturally Peng Daoren. However, there was no doubt that Jiao Daoren could become the most powerful person in the cultivation world. However, if the bloodline descendants could be integrated, it would be a force that even the other 6th, 7th patriarch were very afraid of. At that time, although Jiao Daoren was powerful, he was not unwilling to take power. He traveled around the world all day long or had fun with his concubines, and indulged in the land of tenderness. Therefore, the bloodline descendants of Zhao Daoren were scattered all over the cultivation world. They were always like a plate of loose sand. Some races of Zhao Daoren's descendants would even plot against and kill each other, just like the relationship between the Tima people and the Khoi clan, the green sea snake and the primordial giant crocodile, and the relationship between the primordial giant crocodile and the ice dragon clan. As Lu Ping walked down the stone steps around the wall of the stone mansion, he was thinking about which top-rank monster with the bloodline of Flood Dragon would appear this time. At the moment when he was thinking, a black shadow suddenly swung toward Lu Ping's head. After the black shadow passed by, there was a sharp whistling sound in the space. With a blue light flashing in his eyes, Lu Ping jumped directly from the stone steps to the ground. At the same time, he saw what was attacking him. It was a slender black tail. It was actually the green sea snake. Lu Ping looked at the black giant snake that wriggled out of the rich, spiritual objects with a solemn face. He quickly retreated, and the dual flying swords, the flowing sword, the landslide, and the 7 treasures thunder calabash rose around him. At the same time, the netherwater sword also disappeared in front of Lu Ping in a flash. No one knew where it was lurking, ready to attack the moment the spiritual chi giant snake relaxed. No one knew how many bloodlines Zhao Daoren had left behind, but one thing had never been denied. That was, the green sea snakes had always claimed to be the only race among Zhao Daoren's direct descendants who had inherited Zhao Daoren's mantle. Zhao Daoren's true spirit had once gathered the 6 major attributes: wood, water, fire, earth, wind, and ice. In addition to the metal attribute, Zhao Daoren was only one step away from gathering all 7 attributes. It was precisely because of this step that Zhao Daoren could only be ranked second after Peng Daoren among the 7th patriarch of Sky Splitter. The reason why the green sea snakes dared to claim that they had inherited Zhao Daoren's mantle was because the green sea snakes could derive the 6 attributes of Zhao Daoren's bloodline. The body of a snake, the feet of a crocodile, the horn of a Pegasus. This was a wave of pure bloodline pressure rushed towards him. Lu Ping's bloodline suddenly throbbed. You're tuning in to the Warrior Lore YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.